It's time for Mac Break Weekly. Andy and Alex are here. Renee's got the week off for briefings from Apple. But, of course, we have a lot to go through. Apple covered a whole lot of new features in macOS Monterey, in iPadOS 15, in iOS 15, Apple watchOS 8. They did it in an hour, 45 minutes. We're going to spend the next 2 hours parsing it all, figuring it out. What's new from Apple? Lots. And it's all coming up next on Mac Break Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Mac Break Weekly, episode 769, recorded Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. Andy's Pick and Pull. This episode of Mac Break Weekly is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Hiring can feel like trying to find a needle in a haystack. But when you post a job on ZipRecruiter, their matching technology finds qualified candidates for you and invites them to apply. So while other companies give you too many options, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack. Try ZipRecruiter free at ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. This podcast is supported by AT&T Active Armor. Right now, our lives are on our phones, and with our phones full of live-streamed exercise classes, midday work calls, and nightly family video calls, there is no room for fraud calls. Thankfully, AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor, 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device and service required. Visit att.com/activearmor for details. And by Manscaped. Manscaped has the right tools to get the job done quickly, safely, and hygienically. Father's Day is just around the corner. Make your dad proud this year and get him the brand new Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 and Ultra Smooth package. Get 20% off plus free shipping by going to manscaped.com/twit. It's time for Mac Break Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Apple. And there's a lot of news from Apple. Rene Ritchie getting briefed right now, not available for the show today. He will be on Twit on Sunday, and he was on Office Hours yesterday. So I'll ask Alex Lindsay to channel Mr. Ritchie today. Alex Lindsay from 090.media and officehours.global. Hello, Alex.
Hey there. I'm not sure if I can channel Rene. I don't think I can keep up with him.
You did a big Office Hours last night to cover WWDC. Of course, we covered the stream.
Yeah, we had a great time. We had 4 developers that are kind of really in the mix of it, as well as Rene, and then Justine joined us as well. Nice. So we had a good roundtable talking about the nuts and bolts of the process.
Is that on YouTube?
Question driven. It's on YouTube. Yep, good. It's on my YouTube channel.
YouTube.com/Alex Lindsay, and the WWDC edition. 2 hours and 11 minutes of stuff. So. Good. So I'll ask you to fill me in. Also with us, Andy Inatko from WGBH in Boston. Hello, Andrew.
Hello. I've recovered from the morning heat stroke.
Holy cow! Is it really hot?
It was really hot, and I got up early so I could take my constitutional and do some errands. And I got caught up and stuff, and I wound up doing it in the middle of the morning. It's like it was all humid, and the problem with having like a watch is that it will tell you, oh, by the way, here's what your body temperature is right now, and here's what your heart rate is, and so. But I'm fine. It gave me an excuse to just like lay in bed with the fan on and, with a big tub full of ice, like I'm having an organ harvested. I'm fine. 100.2 degrees, but I'm fine now.
Soon your Apple Watch will tell you you're a bit wobbly today. You might want to stay in bed.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to the feature where it just says, hey, dumbass, you're dehydrated, it's hot, you just sit down, just don't make any decisions on your own behalf from now on. From now on, the watch is in charge, at least until you're responsible for your own health.
I'm going to thank really the invisible third member of the show today, Micah Sargent, who has made, as you can see in the show's rundown, a long list of all the features to iOS 15 and macOS Monterey that Apple talked about. It was an iPadOS 15, which you really do have to start considering a separate venture, watchOS 8.
Yeah.
There is a ton of stuff. But we should start with what Apple did not do, which is announce any new hardware. It's an interesting thing. I don't know if John Prosser's already saved his eyebrows. I don't know if there's anything else he could shave. He said there would for sure be 16 and 24-inch MacBooks. We thought there would be because of the leak from Quanta, thanks to the REvil ransomware squad. Apple, doesn't say. The day of, Love to Dream, another well-known Twitter-based rumor monger, said no new hardware, and Love to Dream won. So Love to Dream gets to keep its eyebrows. John loses some other body part. Why no hardware, Andy?
It feels unlikely that they would have shipped new hardware or taken orders like on that day. I think that the good betting would have been they're going to show something off, and just as a way of demonstrating to developers that M1 is definitely working great. I was really surprised that in the keynote they didn't talk about the uptake of M1. They didn't talk about the success of Mac sales. I think that you're probably talking about Apple wanting to make sure they got enough of these damn things before they actually,
I think you're right.
actually open up the tabs.
It's supply shortage these days. Yeah, I think you're right.
Well, and I think that they don't need to. I mean, with virtual events, that it's much the amount of work it takes to do another virtual event isn't nearly as hard, and so they could easily do something in July or late June or August, or just wait until September. But they don't. The logistics of doing these events is much easier when you're not bringing all the press in all the time and trying to figure that out. So I think that gives them the freedom to move it. We did have a keynote that ran a little long, so there's no reason why you couldn't bump it necessarily off into its own event rather than trying to squash too much into it. We're kind of we used to have these 2.5 hour, 3 hour keynotes, and now it's like, when you get to an hour, you're like, wow, this is really going a long time. Like, what's going on here?
They're not kicking off by saying, here's what the financials of the company. Hey, here's this new landmark Apple Store that we're doing right now. Here's a short video from China. It's just making cut. I mean, if you blinked, you kind of missed Tim Cook, because it was entirely the Craig Federighi show.
It really was,
because this was just all about operating systems, and a little bit of developer stuff attached to the end of it. But it really was. He whatever he paid for that shirt, he can basically deduct the entire thing because it got a lot of airtime.
And it keeps on getting. I think that their keynotes keep on getting better. They've really figured out this model of how to do them virtually, or how to just make a show. I mean, that's all.
Well, one thing they jammed. It was an hour and 45 minutes, I think, and they jammed a lot of stuff in there. We'll be hard pressed to cover it all in 2 hours. It was just so.
And I don't think they can. Again, we say this every single time, but I don't think that they can go back. You can't do that speed on stage. And so I think that you have to keep on thinking about these kinds of launches.
I think it's fine, and I mean, I guess it's interesting. I've been thinking a lot about not just this, but in general. For instance, we have employees who say we don't want to come back. And I think that you saw there was a big letter at Apple that circulated and eventually leaked to The Verge with employees saying we don't want to go back. I think we've created a different beast out here, and so not just conferences, but everything is changing. And I assumed, everybody will just go back to normal. Maybe it'll be a little giddy for a bit, and then it'll go back to normal. No, I don't think so. Yeah. And that's one of the big changes is conferences.
Also, Alex might have another opinion on this, but it seemed I think I recall from the previous keynote, the previous big event. Now it seems as though the cutaway of a expensive condo is now a permanent set somewhere on the Apple campus, because I think I saw them during watchOS going the exact same places, the exact same. There was a Jerry Lewis movie, The Ladies' Man, that used the same sort of thing, but this was a lot more professionally done.
That's
but the fact that it's a standing set.
That was a big innovation where Jerry Lewis did it. So, Alex, do you have any insight? Is that standing set in the Apple campus, or is it? It couldn't.
No idea.
It's got to be a soundstage somewhere, right?
It could be a soundstage. There are some sound stages that are near Apple stuff. So it definitely could be a soundstage that they're using there.
But it's permanent. Obviously, they didn't rebuild it. Well, somebody said that those developers, the health researchers that use the Airbnb to brainstorm new health stuff, they should have just stayed in the condo.
Yeah.
There's no fourth wall, but it's comfy looking.
I got more room here on this set than in the camper that I'm living in right now.
No kidding.
But I think that what we're seeing, if you look at one after the other, is you're definitely seeing this transition where the transitions, the handoffs, they're getting that language of camera and how they're putting everything together in a way that starts to really make more and more sense.
Yeah, it also gives them the freedom not to announce hardware just because they've got this keynote on June 7th, because they could in a month, and probably will, I would guess in a month or two, but probably in a month, they'll have a July event. This is what they did last fall, right? They've even, this is the second event of 2021 already. So I suspect that we're going to see, half a dozen events.
It's just way easier. Again, when you're not bringing everybody in, it's way easier to just put up a video.
And real effective too, because it's basically an advertisement. You can really go for it. My only complaint was it went so fast and there was so much. It was hard to follow it all. I watched the State of the Union that afternoon. It was a little slower, but of course a little more focused on APIs and tools, but. Still, there's a lot of new material. So
and not only that, but there's a lot of stuff that made me go, "What?" When I was watching the event, that all these little they didn't dot I's, they didn't cross T's until you got into like other contacts and other pieces of information they released later. There are a lot of details about there are a lot of details about universal control that I didn't think were absolutely obvious. Private relay, I was 50-50 between, is it encrypting the entire connection or is it just hiding your IP address? And there are a lot of details to sort of unpack.
It looks like.
Exactly. And we'll talk about it later. But
I could go. Mike has done this great job of putting it all in order. I'm going to screw up his rundown because I'm going to cherry pick a little bit, because I think it's important for us to say what we think the most important things are. I mean, there are quite a few. You might say FaceTime on Android and Windows is a big deal from Apple's point of view.
I mean, for Apple. However, again, that's another thing where, you can't initiate from anything except for an iOS device. And so now it's like, okay, I mean, that's nice, but you still don't give all these other platforms parity. And now
it really was the Zoomification of FaceTime, wasn't it?
Yeah, FaceTime and Messages, they both got these little bump, a lot of different features. As a matter of fact, I made a note like halfway through to myself about the tone of the entire show, which was please don't use non-Apple products for anything. And one of them was, hey, don't use a third party, don't use Signal, don't use a third party messaging app. We've added so many features to we don't use Zoom because we've made FaceTime more like Zoom. Don't use the cool messaging apps that you're using with your friends because we've added cool messaging features to iMessage. Even the feature where you can have group viewing, I'm blanking on the actual trademark they put into this, but hey, now you can watch Netflix together, you can watch Hulu together, you can watch. Yeah, but that's like, okay, but Netflix has that feature, and these other apps have that feature already, and they're kind of telling you don't use it through Netflix, use it through our service instead.
That feature is very poorly implemented by the individuals. There's a company, there's a Netflix party, whatever, that got changed to something else.
It's a Chrome extension.
It's a Chrome extension that does that, but the actual implementations from Disney and from HBO and from other ones is pretty poor, as far as how they do that. And so I think that there is a lot of opportunity there. I've been playing with SharePlay, or something that looks like SharePlay since 2002. And so we've been trying to do this for so long, and it feels like we're almost there, and they still haven't quite figured it out. And so Apple is I'm excited to see Apple do it. Unfortunately, it's still limited. What I really want is, of course, to be able to just send out a URL and everyone can, like, thousands of people can watch. I'm not interested in 30, or 15 or something like that, but that's fine. But I think that Apple is making that more accessible, and I think people will start to see what's possible when everyone can watch something at the same time, because that is a really important part of the experience, is experiencing with other people. But we don't necessarily have to have that experience in the same place. And I think that that's what Apple definitely showed us with a lot of what they were doing with messages and with FaceTime, is the idea that we can experience the world together but geographically separated. And so when you look at them being able to have a whiteboard and draw together, when they're able to watch a movie and draw, and be together, those are things that, I think that are interesting. I think Apple's taking baby steps in that area. But Apple doesn't really think about large scale. It's very personal. It's very family, small groups, and so on and so forth. So I think that's where they're not really going to compete with Zoom, which is doing, it's large scale. That I don't think Apple's even interested in.
And I think they also, this is, in a way, this is the story of almost everything they announced. They were adding features to Apple products that exist in other places, but exist now within the Apple ecosystem, and presumably with Apple security and privacy. And I think that's an interesting play for Apple. That's a sensible play for Apple, especially if you want to build service revenue.
One cynical way of looking at it is that, okay, well, obviously they're trying to lock you into the Apple ecosystem. Instead of letting you rely on other people's products, they're trying to get you to use Apple's own way of doing things. But on the other hand, they're also, when you're using Apple products, you're kind of in a very, very safe zone as opposed when where privacy and security is concerned. So that is a point that they can absolutely make, and that's a point that's going to be very, very attractive to a lot of people. I just wish that everybody in the pool meant that you don't have to have an Apple tattoo in order to join the party, especially if when they're talking about tools that help friends get together, help families to get together. I mean, they're the people who just are never going to be buying an iPhone, and those are the people who are always going to have the bubble of shame in the group chat, and they're not going to understand why is there another chat that doesn't involve me. And at some point, I'm going to get so lonely they'll spend $1,000 for an iPhone 13.
Well, remember the emails we saw in the Apple Epic battle, in which a number of Apple employees said, "Well, we can't add that feature to Android. Then parents would buy a cheap Android phone."
Yeah, and Craig Federici said that.
Yeah, and so this is the version of that. Although that's why I started with this FaceTime on Android and Windows, because it is such a departure for them. But as you point out, it's not a parity feature on Android and Windows. It's just a kind of a minimum feature that you can throw in. Does SharePlay work with cross-platform, or is it only in FaceTime and Messages? I think it's only.
One
of the things they did do that's kind of interesting, as somebody mentioned in the IRC, the Shazam Kit API. Some of these APIs are available to Android developers. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, Apple bought Shazam. That's the program that listens to the music and tells you what you're hearing. Now that that's an API, it can be built into third-party apps and available to those third-party apps on other platforms.
Also, when you think about it, it's absolutely to Apple's benefit to make sure that Shazam is being used by as many different people as possible, so that it gets smarter and smarter and it sees more and more kinds of music. So
you could say the same thing for Siri. And in fact, Siri is going to be in a lot more devices. Now it's part of the HomeKit API. So,
I think also the SharePlay is also part of that as well.
Is it? So, that's what I was wondering. So SharePlay is...
Yeah, there's APIs for that as well. And so that's going to really allow you to do a lot of things as a developer. And I think that's one of the things we were talking about last night, was that there's just so many things that Apple's doing that are really cool, but what they're also doing is it's not just Apple's secret sauce. It's being made available to the developers to incorporate into what they're doing.
They call it the Group Activities API, and developers can use it for movies, TV, music, and other shared media from their own apps. Boy, that's really interesting. We're playing with this with Discord. We're going to do Microsoft's doing a gaming event on Sunday, and we're going to. We thought it'd be kind of fun with the Club Twit Discord. We have a shared video room, but it's limited to 25 people. I guess that's plenty. Yeah. So we'll put the Microsoft stream in there. I'll be in there. And then we'll invite viewers in there, and we can all chat about what Microsoft's doing with the gaming. That's, by the way, Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Little plug. And one of the what's interesting is, at first I thought, they're a little late on this, just as Microsoft, which announced a camera and a microphone. You're a little late on the work from home thing, but maybe not. As I said, people may not be fully going back to normal. Maybe we still do want to watch movies together in our respective living rooms.
I think that the two things that are becoming clear as you start to watch people start to analyze this is, number one is that open offices stink, and so people hate them. And the idea of going back to them is, they were in that were in that zone for a while. They were just doing that thing, and that's what you had to do. Now they were like, hey, I got as much done as I used to get done, and I don't have to walk out of the building every time I want to take a phone call. And so I think that's part of it. And number two is a lot of people were sitting in the car for a long time, and now they learned how to not do it, and this lasted long enough for them to adapt and figure out how to do it. I think that the folks that really want to not go back are people who have rooms that they turned, like me. Like I turned this room into a little cove that I get on calls with. I don't do it from all over the house. And so people who had enough space to do that, or the priority to do that, I think really don't want to go back.
This is
now they have their corner office, and they can wear sweats all the time.
Tim Cook sent a note out to employees last week saying they'd have to come back to work Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Only 3 out of the 5 days. But immediately a internal Slack channel was created for people who didn't want to go back to work. Remote Work Advocates, 2,800 members. A note written by about 80 people sent to Cook and shared with The Verge says, for instance, messages like, we know many of you are eager to reconnect in person with your colleagues back in the office. Don't really speak to us. We feel that you're ignoring the fact that there are people with directly contradictory feelings among us. It feels like there's a disconnect between how the executive team thinks about remote and location-flexible work and the lived experiences of many Apple employees. Well, duh. Yeah. I would say in general, management has a different attitude towards work than employees always, right?
Well, and also, I work with a lot of programmers. There's a handful of them that are really outgoing, but for the most part, most of the programmers I work with would prefer to have a lot of time. Yeah. It's not that even that they're introverts, but they like to have a lot lot of time to themselves.
Yeah, don't distract me with meetings and coming over to the cubicle and saying, hey, what's going on? I don't want to know. I want to sit down and head down and type my stuff. So here's the request.
Hardly working.
Yeah. Here are the specific tasks, according to The Verge, outlined by employees in the note. We're formally requesting that Apple considers remote and location-flexible work decisions to be as autonomous for a team to decide as our hiring decisions. So let the team decide. A company-wide recurring short survey. Question about employee churn due to remote work be added to exit interviews. Did you leave because the commute was killing you? A transparent, clear plan of action to accommodate disabilities. That's another good point. I'm sure that the entire Apple campus is wheelchair accessible, but if you're in a chair, you might want to just stay at home and do it. We're formally requesting insight into the environmental impact, of returning to on-site in-person work. That's a good point. Highways in the early part of the pandemic were blissfully clear.
That was a nice time.
Which is, by the way, one way that reason the highway fatalities were the highest since 2007 is because people said, I can drive fast.
Cannonball Run.
Yeah. I shouldn't laugh about that, but that's a serious subject.
But it's hard to unpack this, though, because Apple has a metronome that they can't stop it. They can't slow it. They have to keep to that beat no matter what happens. And they managed to keep it up during the pandemic, more or less. But maybe their worry is that we don't have time to rebuild our company based on our employees being outside the office 2 or 3 times. Yeah, I mean, we can do it.
We just built this campus.
But please, can we finish pulling the rug out from under our entire Mac platform with an entire CPU change and replace that rug before we consider rebuilding every one of our processes?
Yeah.
But I think that the argument is that we got through a year of it. I mean, I think a lot of people are making it.
Apple had an incredible 2020.
Yeah, the hard part is that if you look at Google, Apple, Facebook, a lot of these companies that emptied out their headquarters, it did not hurt the bottom line, at least in the first year. so it's hard for them to, make some of those decisions. And I know a lot of folks that work across many companies here in the Bay Area. And the general sentiment, which I've said before, is that they said, well, I'm not going to quit, but I am going to, freshen up LinkedIn and start applying. And they aren't doing anything suddenly. These are good jobs, but it's definitely making, if people say they have to go back to the office, they are looking at options that have them not have to go back to the office.
I think that's
and you're starting to see it in LinkedIn. You're starting to see lots and lots of these remote. People have to put remote on the job thing because I was talking to somebody that was in recruiting. They said, if you don't put remote on it, you get like 1/10 the number of, no one's applying for jobs that say you have to go somewhere now. And so they all want, and because it means that now people don't have to move to the Bay Area. They don't have to move to anywhere. They can apply for this job from Kansas. They can have a big house and they can have a room that they can do for their office because they're not stuck in some tiny little apartment. And so those are a lot of opportunities for folks to have everything that they want. If you're in this elite class of, and this is a problem, but if you're an elite class of worker that's working for these companies where you are a high-level programmer or someone else that can do those, there's a lot of those jobs that it just really doesn't matter where you are.
That's certainly a consequence Apple has to consider. I mean, everything the Microsoft, Google, and Apple and Facebook do is really about attracting, acquiring, and keeping employees who are very valuable.
Well, it's a real problem for them. I mean, you look at Google, Grow with Google. That is because the colleges aren't producing enough people, and so they're literally bypassing the colleges because they can't get enough people. Apple's, Swift Playgrounds that they're putting out for kids is trying to solve a perceived supply problem, in the future. And so these are all things that they're desperate to have that. And so really, a lot of the leverage sits with the worker over time, the workers that get into that business.
Engineers are so valuable. They do. It sounds a little entitled to read this letter, but they know they're in the driver's seat on this, and Apple needs them. There are two reasons a company wants employees to come into work. One is a dumb one, which is this notion of we're going to monitor you and make sure you're working hard. We don't trust that when you're home in your jammies, you're doing as much work. Yeah. That's really almost unnecessary for coders because you either get the work done or you don't, right?
But also let's not overlook the ethical concern here. Think of the conversation we've been having for the past few minutes here, that there are people who are a certain elite that can afford to say, hey, you know what, I don't want to live in San Francisco, I want to live in Kansas, and because my skills are so rare and so valued, you're going to kowtow to me. However, the people who are being paid the least are the people who can least afford to live in San Francisco, and these are the people that are going to be saying, so what, you can be replaced. If you don't want to come into the campus 3 or 4 days a week, guess what, we'll find someone else to do it. So it's a very complicated calculus, I think.
The second reason that companies do it, and Steve Jobs was a big advocate of this. Remember, Steve, the original design of the Apple campus had only one bathroom at one end and wanted everybody to walk all the way down. For a reason is that he felt like the conversations, the serendipitous conversations that happened within and also in between teams was really valuable to the corporate culture, but also to kind of innovation. That is kind of more serious. And you could put all the SharePoint or whatever they call it, SharePlay into this stuff you want. It's not the same as having lunch together and talking about what you're working on.
I guess I would argue that what I do every morning and what we're starting to do all day in office hours is a kind of a counter to that. I mean, we've built quite a culture within what we're doing without being in the same place. It's global, and I think that is the thing to kind of consider is just how you structure it. We're now getting to a point where we leave the post show open. We're probably a month or two away from leaving the post show open from the end of one show to the beginning of the next one, because there's people just walk.
I saw
they
that
just wander
coming,
in.
by the way. I knew you were going to.
Yeah. But there's 20 or 30 or 40 people that are in there all the time.
Sure.
If you leave it open, we left it open yesterday because we had so many shows. People were doing Mystery Science Theater for the keynote and Mystery Science Theater for what we thought was going to be a music event. And then they literally closed it down to join the evening show. And so the thing is that you're getting all of that stuff because we're having long, deep conversations, except we're doing it with 50 people, not with 2 people. Yeah. And so everyone is learning and discussing those things among 50 or 100 people at a time, and really thinking through that. So it's actually, I don't know, I feel like we're producing as much of a culture as I see in any company that I've worked in, that I've contracted for, which are a lot.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we really do need to go through, we'll never get through them all, but we'll go through some of the highlights of the event from yesterday. Andy Anako, Alex Lindsay, Renee Ritchie has the day off. He'll be on Twit on Sunday to talk about this. And of course, he'll be back next Tuesday, unless Apple's got so much to talk about they continue to brief him into the next week. Completely possible at this point. Our show today brought to you by, speaking of hiring, ZipRecruiter. If you're a business owner who is hiring, bully for you. That's fantastic. we just did. I looked at ZipRecruiter for jobs in our area, and there's like hundreds, maybe 1,000 or more. But that doesn't mean it's easy, especially for you as the hiring person. You probably face a lot of challenges. You know that person you're going to hire is going to make or break your company in many ways. It's a very, very important position, but it's challenging. Whether it's not enough applicants with the right skills or experience, or just the overwhelm of too many resumes to sort through, too many emails and calls, and you got to get somebody hired as fast as possible, not knowing how to reach that person. Maybe that the right person's out there somewhere, but what job board are they on? Where are they? Really, frankly, hiring is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. That's why I love ZipRecruiter. Because with ZipRecruiter, and by the way, you can try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/MacBreak. Immediately, you're posting to 100+ job boards. You're really casting the widest possible net. And resumes don't go to your email or your phone. They go into your ZipRecruiter interface where you can easily rank, sort, and select the right person fast. Plus, when you post a job on ZipRecruiter, their magic technology finds people with the right experience for your job and then actively asks them to apply. It's so effective. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. So what's cool is a lot of people looking for work go to ZipRecruiter, but also a lot of businesses who are hiring go to ZipRecruiter. 2.3 million businesses have come to ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs, including us. We've used ZipRecruiter multiple times. Some of our best employees have come from ZipRecruiter. So while other companies may overwhelm you with way too many options, ZipRecruiter helps you find that needle in a haystack. Right now, you can try it free. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. MacBreak. ZipRecruiter really is the smartest way to hire. Thank you, ZipRecruiter, for supporting MacBreak Weekly. And if we ever need to hire another host, we'll be sure to use you. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. I thought actually, and I did watch the State of the Union later, the developer tools Apple's pitching, and I'd be very curious because you had some developers on with you yesterday, Alex. The developer tools Apple is pitching sound very interesting and very good. The Xcode Cloud, which is basically a CI/CD, a continuous integration and delivery system, is something that a lot of teams use. It's for big businesses, for enterprises, for big programs. I think that's a really, people try to cobble stuff together with, GitHub or Jenkins and things, but this is great to have this in the cloud. What did the developers you talked to think about it? Oh.
Oops, we've lost Alex.
He's disappeared. I did the ad too quickly. I was just adding
the void.
That was very cool. That was kind of like a David Copperfield moment. He's like, Alex.
It was like shaking the magic 8-ball, and now Alex gives us the answer. So
did you hear what I asked? Your headphones weren't in. I was just asking what the developers last night on Office Hours thought about Xcode Cloud, this new
super excited
CI/CD environment. Are they? Okay.
Yeah, I mean they're very excited about it. It solves a ton of problems for them. Now, one of the questions that came up was how much is it going to cost? Because they said that the price was still not outlined, so it's not free. But the ability to there was definitely a fairly detailed discussion about the ability to get that stuff up there and be able to process a lot of that. And I think that it's also a precursor to being able to develop on the iPad.
Well, that was my thought as well. They did announce Swift Playgrounds that let you develop on the iPad, even ship to the App Store on the iPad. Again, we're going to have to look at this. It looks like it only is stuff that you can, basically it's a Swift UI interface. And so very limited, it's a low-code environment. But I'm wondering if you add this Xcode Cloud to that, if suddenly, because the way Xcode Cloud works, your code is in the cloud, it gets built in the cloud, the tests run in the cloud, you can have continuous tests, continuous builds, and continuous delivery. That's for a lot of enterprises.
Virtualization.
Yeah, you don't have to have all the devices or an emulator. Right. It does it all for you. I think that's a really, I want to say attractive, but I think it was also in some environments table stakes, and the fact that Apple didn't have this was a problem.
Well, and I think that with the purchase of GitHub, it was
Microsoft's got it. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think that there's it was brought up that this is probably eventually, not immediately, but eventually a broadside to GitHub for Apple developers.
Yeah, but again, this is very Apple-centric, and GitHub serves a much larger and diverse audience.
No, absolutely. No, it's not going to affect GitHub that much, but it's giving Apple developers a kind of a customized solution for
it's more than GitHub, too, because it's CI/CD, so it's also... it's for enterprises. It's for big teams. It's not for the solo person writing, and I believe beta, app. But it's
a lot of the beta stuff is going to be easier through that as well.
Yeah. So that's pretty exciting. Let's talk about this Swift Playgrounds feature, because I think it's kind of like putting FaceTime on Android. That is kind of a big page turn, a big watershed.
A big moment. A lot of people have been wondering when are developers going to be able to develop native iOS apps on an iOS device, and the ability to write a Swift app on the iPad and then not only just test it, deploy it, but also submit it to the App Store and you're done. That's a pretty huge step. It's not as big as if they brought actual Xcode onto the iPad, which I'm wondering if we're not going to see in the next year or so. But that's a pretty big deal. It also turns every single kid who has an iPad into suddenly this kid has everything that they need in order to actually put something onto the App Store and start making money from there. So that's a big move.
Yeah. What was so the developers you talked to probably are not the kind of people that would use Swift Playgrounds on an iPad to develop.
No, they're doing heavy duty. This is the folks from FX Home, Filmic, Audio.
They're doing low-level
audio
stuff.
toolkit.
And there's a lot of questions. I don't know what APIs will be exposed to. All APIs, some APIs. Mm-hmm. It looks like it is a low-code environment that you use Swift UI to kind of create a look and maybe tie stuff together. It's not clear. You certainly don't want to spend a lot of time on the iPad typing, hundreds of lines of code in. So I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like. But it's a big deal. Maybe
get a keyboard attached.
Yeah.
But I think also though that you really are, for people who are informally starting to get into this, it does give them a lot of options.
I think that's what it's for. It's for some kid who's learned to code in Swift Playgrounds, and it's kind of the next step up. You can get pretty far in Swift Playgrounds. Now you have one more step to go.
Again, when you start thinking about building that smooth slope from learning how to code to being able to actually be a coder working for somebody like Apple, being able to come up with an idea, throw it together, put it up on the App Store, make a little money. I was excited about making $5 an hour shoveling people's their driveways in the winter. So
had you been born now, you would have been probably more likely to be coding.
I was coding back then, but I didn't make any money doing it. Yeah. And so I would have absolutely been coding for money. Sure. I was started when I was 10. By the time I was 13 or 14 years old, I was building usable apps. And
I'll write your apps, sir, for $10.
Yeah. No, I would have been building apps. Absolutely.
I'm sure you have some thoughts on Reality Kit too. Oh, unfortunately, he's pulled a David Copperfield with his microphone.
I hit a button there. Yeah, so
he was so excited he jumped on his.
I hit a button. I was like, I clicked on the wrong thing. The object capture stuff is really exciting.
Is this equivalent of what third-party apps have been doing, though? I mean, you've shown us apps that do this.
It's different. So it's a controlled environment. So what Apple has done is they're going down this path. It is not replacing what things like Polycam do and other people have been building, because those can get objects, but they can also do captures of entire locations. And I didn't really see that with the object capture. They very carefully say object capture. And so it's a controlled environment. Okay, we're going to take a picture of an object. That object can be relatively big or small. Scale doesn't matter as much. And it's just making it nice and easy for you to turn real-life objects relatively easily into 3D objects that are USDZ or OBJ. And so I think that what Apple's done is taken something that's taken a long time for people to figure out and just made it a lot more accessible. It doesn't even replace the 3D, the photogrammetry apps on the Mac. So there's reality capture and there's Metashape. Those do very complex things that I don't think that this does currently. But what it does do is it gives developers developers and individuals who have not done a lot of photogrammetry the ability to do it relatively easily. It gives them the libraries they need to not have to do something externally. And now it will make it, because it's available to those developers, it will make it available. You know, we could see it in a lot of other places. There's a lot of great, they just released it today after yesterday's announcement, is the command line tools to do that. And that's exciting because that means that you can take a whole bunch of photos and have a command line just churn through those. You can just build an automation where you take all the photos and you're not sitting there throwing them in one set at a time to build the models. And so the command line stuff has been exposed. There's great overviews, probably some of the best overviews of how to do photogrammetry. Of course, Apple is really good at spending a lot of time on, here's why it matters, here's what you do, here are the instructions on how to do it. What I haven't seen yet, and I haven't had time to go through all the data that got posted this morning, but what I haven't seen is the interaction between LiDAR, structured light, and the photogrammetry, which is the unstructured. And so I think that there's a possibility of blending those two together to get high accuracy of, because the big thing with photogrammetry is first, you have to know where the camera was in relationship to the object. That's the first thing you always do. Then every pixel makes sense. If you know the focal length and you know where the camera relates to it and where it relates to the other cameras precisely, you can now get an incredibly detailed object out of it. So we saw it, you know, it's available. We saw it working with Unity. There was no mention of Unreal.
They did say Unity a couple of times. We were listening for that. Of course,
we didn't see it. We didn't see Unreal. Unity didn't get highlighted, like they didn't get brought up, but they were mentioned a couple of times. Cinema 4D also, which is great. So I think we're going to see a lot more development of it. But we're definitely seeing this incredible rollout again around AR. I mean, I just think that this is the most epic rollout I've ever seen a company undertake, which is that we're slowly giving you the tools, we're slowly giving you the training, we're slowly giving you a market, you know, and so the folks that are early into it are being able to take advantage of it and turn those objects. But I think and now that it's so easy, you're going to see more of this in education, more of it into retail sales, because it's a lot easier to do. So yeah.
One thing you can clarify for me, because is this designed to be a tool that developers can use to create objects and ingest models for their projects, or is this a tool that they can enable and grease the rails for 3D object creation for users of the apps that they build?
I think both. I'm not certain. So I think that there's APIs that they're giving you to do that, and I have to. Again, I haven't had time this morning. They dumped everything out this morning. I haven't had time to look at it.
This morning was all about going through my punch list of anything that still had like a red question mark on it. Like, okay, is this one for the other?
Yeah, so that's why we had a Thursday. We're having another Thursday session for office hours in the evening, was because I was like, I needed now to have time to read all this stuff. And so what you definitely can do is create those objects. And that's important for the developers, even if it's just creation, because developers are not 3D modelers. So where do you get the 3D objects to test stuff with? And where do you get it to work with it? And so
I have to say
being able to
that
very quickly generate that
was really pathetic. I guess that was in the State of the Union. They showed a homemade croissant somebody on the team had made and 3D modeled it, and it really didn't look good as a 3D model. Then they showed steam coming off of it, which really didn't look good. So you know, there's a little way to go, I think.
Oh yeah. No, it's not. But you know, it was funny that the box, they showed a box being modeled. And
that was beautiful.
The funny thing about that box is that every time you teach someone how to do photogrammetry, you always have them model a box first, because it feels really impressive and it's very, very easy. There's no, you know,
a rectangle.
The things that get complicated and where you need a lot more photos and a lot more data and everything else are things like occlusion. So when my arm goes like this in front of my body,
right,
the area, the gap, the cavity between my hand and my body becomes really complicated if you don't have enough photos, because you have to represent those. And so those kinds of things become much more difficult. And there's a lot of things like smooth surfaces that become hard. And again, if we're starting to incorporate the unstructured and structured light together, we're going to end up with something that's magical. But we're not at magical yet, but we're pretty impressive. So it's exciting. When I started doing photogrammetry, we were building models and looking at a photograph and moving the model so that it would match the photograph. You have to figure out what the focal length was of your camera, and you'd manually adjust it in your 3D app. Then you'd put a cube in there and you'd get it all twisted until you get the position of the camera, and then you start modeling from what you saw by hand. And so the idea that you can do this with a couple photos with your phone is 20 years later is pretty exciting.
Nice. So. Yeah, that is exciting. As soon as I heard them say photogrammetry, I said, paging Alex Lindsay.
Yeah.
Paging Alex Lindsay.
It's just going to be, the thing that we're getting into, one of the things that I've started to do is to put 3D objects into Keynote. For my Keynote presentations, I have started to use motion. So I take a USDZ file, I convert something to USDZ, then I put it into motion, and then I animate it turning, and then I just bring it in with an alpha channel into Keynote, and now I have this 3D object, and people are like, ooh, look at that, and I can, that's going to be something that very, not too far away, we'll be able to just drop that object in as a media resource, and so. This photogrammetry that we're seeing right now that's still a little geeky is going to be something that you just do all the time. Oh, I want to put that into my presentation, or I want to put that on, and the recipient of that, if you think about like Pages is able to, when these things are able to support this, even now I can text you a 3D model, and when you click on it, it's just going to pop up, on your desk. And that happens right now with the phone. Like there's nothing new about that. But when we start going down that path, it's going to get exciting because we're just going to think about just the same way we take photos. We're going to take models of something that we think are really cool or something that you want to fix or other things like that. And you can just send the model out, and it's going to be very consumer driven. My guess is in the next 12 to 24 months, the average person will be able to just pick up their phone and create a model and send it to their friends, and it won't, and it'll be very highly detailed, and it'll be something that people do a lot.
Kovar in our Discord points out that there's a session every day for object capture. So Apple's very much, giving developers the option, the opportunity to get used to it, to start doing it. It's funny that you should say it. I hadn't really thought about it, but it makes sense that developers don't do this. That's something somebody else does. So
even a lot of animators don't do it. Modeling is hard.
Yeah.
It's the same as a cabinet maker. And it really is in a lot of ways. There's a certain approach to it, and you have to.
Really interesting.
I mean, that's all I used to do for years, and it is but there's definitely a talent to it, or a skill at least, that you have to learn how to do it, and it takes a lot of time to get good at it. And so, asking developers to generate geometry is not something that they're going to have time to do. And so, being able to just take photos and put it up there is pretty exciting.
So. Today, create 3D models with object capture. Wednesday, AR quick look, meet object capture. Friday, create 3D workflows with USD. And that's all for developers. And
this is going to be just explosive for education, for a lot of different marketing areas. Being able to take an object and just pull it up and rotate it around, and a lot of the things that we feel like we have to go to a conference for.
Yeah.
Or things that we want to kind of look at it in detail, and we'll be able to do that pretty soon.
Yeah. They're doing it with pizzas. That's harder, right? Pizza occlusion.
nothing like being able to have a 3D model of a pizza.
Yeah, I did notice that in the State of the Union they really focused on food. They were talking about how this is a good one, piece of wood. They're really talking about, so this is really training for how to do this. Yeah, it's interesting.
And what's interesting here is what they're doing there is they're having you just move around, and it's taking the photos as needed, which is an interesting process if that's what they're doing there. But I think that's what it looks like they're doing. Yeah. And it does look like it's flexible enough. It's 220 to 200. Usually mine are closer to 200 than 20.
Yeah. There's a turntable, so they're showing it with a turntable.
Yeah, Lazy Susans are really useful for this. And one of the things we've been using probably for the last, and this is where developers can come in. One of the things that we've done for the last 15 years is motorized Lazy Susans that are integrated with the camera. And we started this with SLR cameras, but you basically turn it on and it just turns every 10 degrees, and it takes a photo as it's doing that. And you actually can see there are ones that curve all the way around, and so the camera takes a row and then comes down, takes another row and comes down, takes another row. We used to use those for object QuickTime VR, but now for photogrammetry, they turn out to be super useful as well.
They also talk about including them in your apps and how to select the right output depending on the source. Place you're going to play it. And I mean, this is they're really getting into it, and I hope developers do. I think that's one thing that it's been a great demo. But we haven't, we've seen a very, besides IKEA, it's been kind of a limited.
It's not, It's not just IKEA, though.
Okay, I know.
That's all they're talking about.
I know.
There's a lot of people making models
Wayfair.
right now.
Yeah.
Well, and Amazon.
Yeah.
So there's, Amazon's got whole warehouses over in China that are just making 3D models.
That's all they're doing.
So the thing is it's really an important skill for people who are trying to figure out what they want to do next as well. This is going to create, over time, it's going to create an explosion of demand for these 3D models, and it's going to be mind-numbing. When it takes off.
One of the things that was kind of the other shoe dropping, we've been waiting when Apple fired Sal Soghoian from the Automator team way back when, I don't know, maybe even 5 years ago now, some time ago. It really concerned a lot of us that Automator had a short lifespan ahead of it. Then, of course, Apple bought Workflowy and turned it into Shortcuts. Now it's starting to look, oh boy. Well, the other shoe dropped yesterday when they said, yes, Shortcuts is coming to the Mac, and you can import your Automator workflow into it. I don't know what's going to happen to AppleScript. As Sal and others have pointed out many times, there's a lot of big companies that use AppleScript and Automator automation for pre-press and things like that would be very upset if Apple killed it. I don't think they're going to kill it. I think what they're going to do is let it fade away and hope that you move your Automator workflows at least into Shortcuts.
Well, it might be even more aggressive than that. They did say that, I actually wrote it down as a quote, that Shortcuts is the future of automation on Mac. And they mentioned they mentioned a heavy transition from Automator, as though the implication from at least the language that they chose makes me think that Automator is not long for this world. And
they've given it a long time. This is a long.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, if you're boy, Shortcuts is so ambitious and it's so muscular a solution. I mean, I don't do a whole lot of shortcuts on Mac. Excuse me, shortcuts on iOS, because I haven't been primarily an iOS developer. But I do I do keep up with the Reddit about shortcuts, and
it's pretty
the
amazing,
solutions that they're making.
Yeah,
exactly. They're making solutions that are, if that were an app, it would be a useful app. But no, it's just a simple it's a simple shortcut that.
Well,
that
what you really
shared
want is
anybody.
API access to all the APIs, because now you really have a tool. It becomes a new language.
And they made a big deal about how they're putting shortcuts into they're wired up shortcuts into pretty much the entire Macintosh basic OS experience, that Siri can control it, that Finder actions are controllable by it. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a good step forward. You're right that they're always good. The thing is that there's always going to be that one setup
legacy.
I mean, the fact that there's a reason why there's that certain brother HX20 little laptops from 1982 sell for a couple $100, because there are still a lot of a lot of Valve systems that they're controlled via this 1982 laptop, and so at some point you have to say, maybe you need to get an intern in. It's time to change AppleScript into a shortcut. You will like it that much more. It'll be easier, and other people will be able to understand how it works and expand the skill set of this thing that's working.
And Apple generally does this pretty gently. I mean,
it's been
eventually they turn it off.
Years,
but if you look at 64-bit, they were like, hey, 64-bit's the future, and then they're like, 64 bits is pretty important. Then it's like, we're doing everything in 64-bit. Then it's like, you need to do everything in 64-bit, and then it says, okay, we're done. And that was over 5 or 6 years of them slowly telling you. So we're in that beginning phase of probably 4 to 5 years before Automator and AppleScript don't work. That's probably
You think it's the beginning or the end? I feel like it's the end of the 5 years that they've been warned. By the way, AppleScript relied on apps putting AppleScript hooks into the app, OSA script hooks into the app, and I notice when I look at the dictionaries I can get, very few apps now do that. So we should get Rich Siegel on, because I'm sure he still supports AppleScript, and see what he thinks. But honestly, I think we're closer to the end of that 5 years than the beginning, Alex.
I think middle at best. I think we're at the beginning or middle. Yeah, I think that they haven't been so out. They haven't been so out.
Well, we don't know what phone calls they're making. They may be calling these guys.
But I'm saying that was a slow transition that we saw publicly with 64-bit. So I think we're probably going to see the same thing.
Spatial audio and lossless audio now on Apple Music. I haven't had a chance to sit down and listen to it. And then there was a bit of a shocker that spatial audio is coming to the Apple TV. What?
It sounds so good.
I didn't know it wasn't in there.
Can I just say that it got funny at some point? Like if you were doing like the Apple Keynote drinking game and you were unlucky enough to get spatial audio in the draw, you were hammered by 12 minutes in because spatial audio. We have this new mouse that has spatial audio, and
FaceTime now has spatial audio, right?
Yeah, everything. It's like it's nice. I'm sure you worked hard on it and you're very proud of it, but. Wow, let's make sure that there's this content out there and that there are devices that are actually going to make this really...
I actually went out and bought a pair of AirPods Max because I felt like if I'm going to talk about this, I at least have to hear it and try it. They're not great. By the way, audio quality, audio fidelity is not great on them, but it's Bluetooth.
They're comfortable.
They're comfortable. They have excellent noise cancellation. It's superb. It's the best I've ever heard. But
if you haven't noticed, what they're really good at is the noise cancellation where you still hear your voice just a little bit. Yeah. You hear the mic tells you a little bit about what's going in when you're on a phone call. Yeah. So you know what you're sending out in a way that
so you don't shout the whole time.
Or that you also don't shout all the time, as well as when you're getting wind noise, you're getting other things. It's kind of, because I have to admit that I'm now take all my calls at home with in the Macs. They're just comfortable to wear while I'm in that. But the thing to listen to. So Apple has done, I think, a really, really great job of rolling out spatial audio. Is that they told us it was coming, so we were all kind of ready. Some of us bought the new headphones finally, and then then they dropped it. And one of the things they have now on the site, I think yesterday there was a little bit of a stutter step of them putting stuff up and not going up and everything else in music, but now it's up there. So they have they have a thing with Marvin Gaye that is the what's going on, and they play this. Yeah, it's like 2.5 minutes.
Hear the difference tab.
And it is the Weekend one is okay as an example, but the Marvin Gaye one of what's going on is just a stunning example of what is possible. So they walk you through it, and they say, and it's really interesting. They keep on saying the same thing. It's like, and stereo sounds much better because that's what we're used to. They just keep on saying that's what we're used to. That was the past, but it's really well done. It's really well done.
I'm amazed by how many people actually. I'm really shocked. They've obviously been lobbying hard for the music industry. Zane Lowe is taking the point on this, but they've lobbied hard because there's a surprisingly large number of even classical music spatial audio.
They're not lobbying hard.
People want to do this?
No. The Lady Gaga's album, I think yesterday or something like that was listed here as spatial. It's an older, back catalog is in the top 50 on Apple. And the reason that that's happening is because of spatial. So the music industry, Warner, Universal, other folks there, they look at this as an opportunity to refresh and generate new revenue with their back catalog.
Right. Remix.
So what's happening is they are remixing everything that was a top hit that they have the stems for. If they have the old records that still have everything separated out, they are now going back to all of that, and they're just going to release all of it because it's a new way because there's people now. What they didn't have before, all they had before was Tidal, and Amazon Music kind of, and so now they have Apple pressing down on this, and they're all just like they're rushing the gate. And the thing is that when you get used to listening to it, like you're like, I'm just going to wait until you at first you don't hear it that much, but when you hear if you go back and forth between a stereo and the Atmos version, you're going to hear a big difference where suddenly there's actually just more space in your mind to listen to it and hear it. And so you'll start hearing more instruments. You hear a richer experience of that entire song.
That I have to do it on those crappy AirPod Max.
You don't have to.
You could listen to better headphones. You would hear it.
Yeah, you can listen to it.
I'm still going to be listening to music on these.
Those are the Google Buds?
Those your basic USB-C earbuds. Right. And the other thing, and as always, is going to be, I don't care how good the Lady Gaga album sounds. I want to see if the Hoodoo Gurus album sounds great. Right. And they're probably not going to get around to it. It's like, it's nice. Again, I don't think I'll I don't see it being this revolutionary change to how music is mastered and changed and experienced, because I don't see it as a technology where it's going to be for everybody. It's going to be for people who have the right speakers. It's going to be for people who have the right headphones.
Will you even hear it on speakers? Don't you have to wear headphones for it to work? Well,
you got a Dolby Atmos, but
so
if you have a 7.1 or 5.1 system, you have a.
I tested that. I tested that this morning, and it's great.
I'll try it.
This is great. This is. Can I just say this is why this show is so great, because we have a great spread of opinions.
I'm kind of on your side.
I'm just saying.
I'll tell you why.
I'm so bored about spatial audio. I find it so completely not interesting.
We've seen this
as a technology
before. I mean, there was quadraphonic, died. There was SACD and DVD 5.1, and it died. So the industry's tried this before. Now, admittedly, with Apple behind it,
it's Apple,
the number one music store behind it. Maybe that'll make a difference. So tell me Apple, again. I really want to be clear. This will work if you have an Atmos decoding surround sound speaker system, obviously.
I listened to it on my Apple TV today.
Or I suppose without minus the Atmos part, it'd work with, you wouldn't have the above stuff, but it would work with any surround system, right? That had Dolby. It should. Dolby surround, yeah. With
514,
you'd have to have a Dolby decoder that knew about your headphones. How would you do that?
Well, because what it's doing is doing by now. This is something that I don't know as much.
I think it needs to be decoded, Alex, right?
I don't think it does. I think that it's using the stereo
more like binaural.
To figure that out. Yeah, binaural.
Okay.
And so it'll fold down into binaural if that's all you have, and it'll do more if you have it. So in music is a little different than movies. So movies, the reason that you get Atmos with movies, and when you turn your head, it stays where the screen is because it's using information that's in the AirPod Pros and in the AirPod Pro Maxes.
That's the least interesting kind of.
But with music, I think it can just simply do binaural at that point, and so at that point, it's because what we find, or what people have found, I mean, this is how this all works, is that our ears are not using volume to decide where something is; they're using time.
Yes.
So as we have, if we slightly push this out of time, it starts to feel like it's around us, and we can aim.
I'll tell you what, I will test this tonight. I should have done it before the show, but I will test this tonight with the AirPods Max. The reason I bought them is so I could test this, and then also do it in. I have a very good pair of Sennheisers, the IE300.
It should work,
and then
should have the same
the electrostatic headphones. And I will let you know. I mean, does it make a big difference? A little difference? Is it exactly the same? I'll let you know.
But listen to that example. Listen to the example.
I'll do the Marvin Gaye,
because that helps separate it out. And the thing is that it's just that the music industry, because Apple's jumping on it, they've turned all the fires up on it. So you're gonna see a lot of a back catalog rolling out. And then in addition to that, most artists, are always looking for the next thing to do to keep people listening. And so you're probably going to see a large number of people. And again, we don't have to have everybody be interested in it. You only have to have a core percentage of 5 or 10% to make it worth them spending a little extra time on it to put it out and
as
spread
I said,
it out.
The catalog is surprisingly, it's not deep, but there are quite a few artists and quite a few albums already available on Apple Music. Where you
I really want, like Andy was talking about the Hoodoo Gurus, which would be great. But the one that I really want to see remixed is XTC.
I'd like to hear more classical music. They only have one example, and it's a silly example because it's Chopin. Well, it's a guy playing the piano. I mean, what are you going to do? Put him in the left, and then the right, and then the left?
They have Jupiter. Jupiter from Holst.
Jupiter be a good. That's a good.
So
okay, that's
Jupiter's there, but some of the other ones. The problem with classical, in my opinion, is that the way you record it. You keep all the artists in the same place. Because they have to, or they not have to, but that's how they play, and so they're syncing themselves up with each other, while they're playing.
Right.
And so the hard part is that you're keeping those together.
They're not on separate tracks.
And so it's harder to spread them out in the same way. And so that becomes more challenging. So I find that in Atmos, I'm really excited about the idea of classical, but it's not as the places that really work are things that you can have those separate. Each
tracks are separated. Is a separate track. Yeah, with classical, they mic everybody. I mean, they have many mics, but you're still in a large room where the mics are picking up everybody. There's just, that's for the kettle drums, that's for the trumpets.
Well, and a lot of
the
times there's still area mics that are pulling those up too, and so to grab the entire feel of the room and that. So it is more challenging. I think that
I'd love to hear Jupiter in a real like you're in the middle of the orchestra.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, for me, Jupiter. I mean, the planets in general, and then Appalachian Spring is one that I think would translate really well.
That'd be another great one.
Yeah.
But it's silly to have a solo pianist doing Chopin in surround.
Well,
I don't understand.
Not actually. So one of the things that's interesting about a lot of it is adding reverb into space.
So you're in a room. He's still a point in space where he's playing the piano, but you hear the room. That's interesting. You know what? I'll play with this tonight. Actually, I'm really looking forward to it. Zane Lowe did a whole explanation. He's the one who does the demos. It's going from mono to stereo to spatial on Apple Music, but he also he is now the co-head of artist relations as well as a host, and he also is pointing out that now there is support for all this in Logic, in Apple's tools, and so that's going to make a big difference too. I don't know. I think people still use Pro Tools predominantly, but
you can definitely do both. I mean, Pro Tools is probably the most popular for doing surround, but I think that Logic and even Resolve, has a lot of tools that are capable of doing a lot of the Atmos work. And the thing is that Apple's doing what no one else did before, which is explaining it clearly, giving people clear examples, and spending money on promoting it. And what it does is it separates Apple from everybody else. And so the other thing is it puts every other music service kind of on. They have to figure out how to do this as well, and so they have to keep up. And Apple forcing everybody to keep up is going to be part of what we keep on seeing.
Zane says artists in the future might never even think about making a stereo record because all they've known is spatial. And the same way, like a modern artist would never think of making a mono record. He says stereo will always exist. No one is coming in and canceling stereo, just like they didn't cancel mono. I've got a lot of mono records in my collection, and they sound great because they were designed to be heard in mono. A lot of Beatles purists say, don't listen to the stereo versions of Sgt. Pepper. You got to listen to the mono. He says music that was designed to be heard in stereo will sound incredible in stereo like it always has, but now music will find its way to a spatial environment. It's not about the end of anything. It's about the beginning of something new.
Well, and also the way Atmos works is that when you put it into Atmos, it'll fold back into stereo, and the stereo oftentimes actually sounds better folded in from the Atmos than it would if you mixed it into stereo, because you put it in all these places around the person, and then Atmos calculates and puts it back into stereo. From that point, you can still tweak it and trim that out. But the bottom line is that the stereo mono come automatically when it's being produced in spatial in Atmos.
Oh yes, of course. And mono too. You could probably mix it down to mono if you really wanted to. All right. So that I think that those are important, and it's certainly going to sell a lot of AirPods. Do the wired AirPods do spatial, or do you have to have an AirPod Pro or AirPod Pro Max?
No, I think that you should be able to. Again, I think you will hear
won't be as spatial.
Good. It won't be, but you'll hear the spatial. I think that the spatial music will work with every headphone, I believe. So that's not an issue. It's it's when you're watching movies and you have that positional where you turn your head and it's you're hearing it in one place. But that's happening in Atmos for film, not for Atmos for music.
Yeah. We're going to take a break, come back and talk about Scooter X's favorite feature. Actually, might be one of mine. It makes me want to go buy more Macs. Universal Control. That's coming up in just a little bit more of Mac Break Weekly in a moment. This podcast is supported by AT&T Active Armor. Right now, our lives are on our phones, and with our phones full of live-streamed exercise classes, midday work calls, and nightly family video calls, there is no room for fraud calls. Thankfully, AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor, 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device and service required. Visit att.com/activearmor for details. macOS Monterey, maybe 12. I don't think they said, did they? What number it is? Is it 11?
No, I think they are always referring to it as Monterey.
Monterey. Airplay to a Mac now. That's nice. Shortcuts we already mentioned. But I really like this idea, and it's really not just a Monterey feature, it's an iOS 15 feature, of being able to put my iPhone, iPad, Macintosh, and my iMac all together, my laptop, and then moving the mouse from one to the other and using the same mouse and keyboard on all of them. That's, you could do that with Synergy and other third-party tools in the past, but now I'm really excited. I can also drag files. This means the iPad Pro is suddenly was the right thing to get. That's going to be where my photo workflow starts, but now I can easily, after I'm done doing whatever I want to do on the iPad, drag it to my iMac for the finishing touches.
That was one of the nicest demos I think Apple has ever put into a keynote.
Yeah.
Because it's like there's not like load in this app and make sure you register this device with this device. Make sure you use monitors so that you tell like there's going to be a host Mac. You got to make sure that the host Mac knows exactly where the iMac is or the iPad is in relationship to its own desktop. It's like, no, you see, I put the iPad next to the thing. All I have to do is keep moving my mouse cursor to the right, and at some point it leaves the Mac screen and enters the iPad screen. And if that pointer is on the iPad screen, suddenly the trackpad belongs to the iPad and the keyboard belongs to the iPad. And as you said, if I got Procreate and I've got a project that I was drawing in that app, I can simply use the mouse, drag it from Procreate on the iPad
Wasn't that a cool
into
demo?
a timeline.
Holy cow.
And if it really is as simple as that, where no, you don't, you have to make sure. I'm sure that at some point you have to flip a switch and say yes, please use this feature. But man, there's just that's exactly how it would work in a movie, and then nerds like us would say, oh, for God's sakes, it would never work like that. There would have to be some sort of permissions thing, and you'd have to click some buttons. So yeah, and I'm absolutely with you. This is the sort of leap of faith that I made when I bought the new iPad. And you don't need the new iPad to do it. I think it goes all the way back to, I think the specs actually say any iPad Pro, and most machines made in I think the earliest Mac is the 2015 MacBook Pro, so it will work on existing hardware. But yeah, this is if you bought an iPad of any stripe with the idea that at some point Apple's going to make this so well integrated into your desktop experience that it is going to be not a case of, oh, well, I have to upload something into iCloud, then download it from iCloud, but this will actually be an extension of my digital experience. This was the payoff. It's a really, really wonderful feature, and I can't wait to get my hands on it.
I mean, just having the 12.9, they've had this with Duet, the ability to share the screen.
Yeah.
But this is, you just put it down. It looks like, they say no configuration, no setup. It just works.
Yeah, they said, I was reading someone online who says that they got some more information about it, that it's actually a very, very simple hack where
a switch or something.
The feature, well, no, the feature assumes that if you're moving that you know where the iPad is. So if you're moving the mouse pointer off of the right-hand side of the screen, that must be where the iPad is, or that must be where the next device is, and that's where it's going to go to look for it and go find it. I don't know how it works that way, but I think that the biggest win of this would be if it really is as simple as that, where if it locates each other via Bluetooth or something, it knows where each device is, and based on that, you don't because you've enabled this in prefs, you're good.
Here's the fine print. Available on the MacBook Pro 2016 and later, MacBook 2016 and later, MacBook Air 2018 and later, iMac 2017 and later, 5K iMac late 2015, iMac Pro, Mac Mini 2018 and later, Mac Pro 2019 and iPad Pro, iPad Air 3rd generation and later, iPad 6th generation and later, iPad Mini 5th generation later. Both devices, this is actually a hint as to how it's working, must be signed into iCloud with the same Apple ID using two-factor authentication. I thought that was kind of interesting. I think that's for security, but maybe also a nudge to get people to using two-factor. To use wirelessly, both devices must have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and handoff turned on, and must be within 10 meters of each other. That's the range of Bluetooth. iPad and Mac must not be sharing a cellular and internet connection. You can't be hotspotting. You can use it over USB, by the way, but you must trust your Mac on the iPad. So I think this is really the next step from Sidecar. But I think it's a really interesting step. And more importantly, the drag and drop. Because really, the iPad has felt like this kind of sealed box that it's hard to get files into and out of. You don't even really know where the files live. The idea that you could be in Procreate and just say, well, put that in Keynote on the Mac is really interesting. It could be very, very powerful. The iPad did get a lot of new features. iPadOS finally gets widgets all over the place, which it should have had.
Also that, but large size, special large size widgets that only the iPad can use.
Those are quarter screen size. They're huge.
Yeah. And that was another thing where as the first thing I thought about would be like, how easy is it going to be to use shortcuts inside a widget where I can have these features basically inside a large widget there.
Yeah.
And also they addressed the horribleness of the Springboard launcher by giving us alternative ways of setting up if there are apps we don't want to use, we can sort of hide them away by putting them on a special screen and then say, please don't show me that screen. A new the same app bin that will automatically organize things. Multitasking has been given a big leg up. Keyboard shortcuts.
Much needed. That was not discoverable. I'm hopeful that this will be a lot easier to use.
The thing that I was really fascinated by is that they created a much easier mechanism for doing slide over and sharing the screen. Yeah. But they also added a new thing that now you can have a window that's what they're actually calling a center window. And I was reading through some of their papers on this, and this is the first time that I've seen them refer to things on the iPad as windows. So this is
it's a window floating above your other windows. And
it is a special entity. It's not as though we're going to have overlapping windows like on macOS. I don't think they would want that. I don't even think that I, as an iPad user, would want that. But it gives that extra flexibility. Like I'm navigating through an email inbox, which is the best demo that they showed. Like I don't necessarily want to have this whole email share the entire half of the screen with Outlook or with Mail. It's okay for it to suddenly straddle both of them and be this window that pops up over there. But the idea that this is the thing that kind of confused me and that I'm looking forward to playing with, that they mentioned being able to manage these windows, about having apps that have multiple windows. This is language that I've never seen Apple use before when it comes to iPadOS apps.
I'm
really keen to see how they do it.
This is what they say about the shelf. View all the open windows for an app. What? And quickly switch between them with the new shelf. You can even add and close windows. So I thought initially it was workspaces, but it's not. It's windows in an app. What is that? How would you implement that? That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, like as though you're creating like new, like if you're in Safari, I'm imagining that they're allowing you to create
windows,
or to create a different instance of Safari that's so that when you like Command Tab over to go to another space, you can have a different Safari space going on for you. It's very interesting. Right now, one of the reasons why I have multiple web browsers on my iPad is because sometimes I want to have separate browser-based workspaces. And it would be very, very interesting if I could do it all in Safari. And with all the changes they've made to Safari, it's a much more attractive proposition than it ever was.
I think this is a direct response to the M1 16 gigs of RAM, the new capabilities of the iPad, that iPadOS is finally starting to look like a operating system, not a content consumption ops. The keyboard shortcuts, the widgets, they added a whole bunch of new stuff. An app switcher. I think the multitasking is a huge improvement.
Well, in a lot of ways, this is just rethinking the Mac OS. You're now into something where you have a keyboard, you have
of OS,
and they're not. I think that they're carefully watching. Okay, for the future of OS, I mean, they're going to keep on having. I think Mac OS is going to run for the next decade, but I think that, at least the next 5 years, But I think that you're going to keep on seeing that they're reimagining how you interact with your content, how do you interact with your apps, how do you interact with those things from the ground up, as opposed to how do we make them look like the Mac, so we're going to keep on seeing
Apple,
that process.
According to reports, sees these as parallel tracks. At least for now. I agree at some point maybe macOS goes away. But the idea is there are people who grew up, as we all did, with a desktop operating system. But there are younger people who grew up with touch-only, touch-first devices, and they're going to prefer iPadOS. And they can be parallel, just different strokes for different folks. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with Alex that that's a really good point, because if you it made me think about universal control in sort of a different way. If you think about now, the mouse pointer on my Mac has parity with the user interface of the iPad starts to feel more like an extension of my Mac desktop as opposed to a totally separate device that can share certain features and files. Exactly. So yeah, that could be an interesting test bed or test case to see how well will Mac users adapt to an iOS style interface, which is very, very consumer oriented, very, very trimmed down, very, very low clutter, no overlapping windows, but think of it as an extension of a Mac.
Yeah. They added app library to the ability to hide windows or screens, so you don't have to have all your apps kind of strewn across the iPad. I really liked this new quick note feature. Yeah. And what they're doing with notes. Notes is now system-wide on iPadOS, iOS, and macOS. And I think the idea that you pull up from the corner to start a new note, which now goes into Notes automatically, but is also attached to the app that you created the note. It's a sticky note attached to that app or that tab in Safari. That seems very useful and very interesting. I think this might be something people really like.
It also hints to how integrated the iOS experience and the Mac experience is going to be through all the different stuff you do with other people. Like the ability to take this note and now drop it into an iMessage, or take an iMessage, drop it into a note, create these collections of notes that you're now sharing with multiple people that's attached specifically to a conversation that you had, and you go exactly to that part of the conversation once you click on this referential note. So they're really the submarine attack of all this is really making everything work together as though it did, to make the device that you're working on absolutely irrelevant, whether it's an iOS device, an iPadOS device, a Mac, or at some point you're going to be dragging things off of your Apple Watch, I'm sure.
I have to say though, I'm going to probably use Safari on the iPad more, just because I can attach these notes. They stay with the page. Yeah. When you go back to the page, the note shows up there. It is available in Notes everywhere. I think this is a kind of a new idea in productivity that I've not seen before. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, they're really taking advantage of the integration of we've got the hardware, we've got the operating system, we've got the APIs we can build, and we're creating one app of our own that actually integrates all that stuff together. It's the only heartbreaking thing is that if you got everything on Apple devices, it works great. But what do you do when you find Notes as a really, really important app for you? But unfortunately, you do have to occasionally go onto a Windows device or go onto
I only use cross-platform note-taking apps for that very reason.
The problem is that when every time you incorporate another operating system, it slows you down. So, like for instance, I have to stream stuff to multiple platforms. And I'm now slowed down to the lowest common denominator all the time. And so when we stream it just to Apple, it just works. Everyone else, and this isn't because Apple isn't supporting something. This is just because everyone else is very bad at it. And so you end up having to dumb down what you're doing to whatever that is.
Yeah, but that's the real world, Alex. I would love to get everybody
but I'm saying
at
Apple
Twit to
doesn't
use FaceTime instead of Google Meet, but I can't make everybody use an Apple device.
Right, but Apple doesn't have to pay attention to that. Like Apple can say, we're gonna make
it's wonderful here in the garden.
They should. If they want to live in a world where there are people that can't afford $1,000 for the entry-level notebook, it would be nice if they acknowledged that there are people with $500 or $600 notebooks. There are people with $250 notebooks. But
I think that
would love to be able to participate in this group hug, or people that I can afford a $1,500 desktop computer, but I can really only justify $500 for a carry around machine.
What Apple's doing with FaceTime is exactly how they're going to pursue this, which is it's really best if you're using an Apple device. Okay, if you're using Android or Windows, you could be part of the group, but don't expect parity.
We'll let you participate just enough to realize how much you're missing by having a Windows machine.
But they're serving the market of a large number of people who are kind of in that fold and don't really just want to have it work, and they want it to be smooth, and they want it, and so when you open that up, you're going to make them unhappy, and they're the ones buying your product. So the problem is that the people who are buying the product, the reason that they buy the product is for that ease of use and for the fact that they can throw those things around. And there's an awful lot of them. We can talk about people who want to try to cross-platform, and they're out there. There's an awful lot of people that just want to stay in the garden. They're pretty happy in the garden, and they spend a lot of money in the garden. And so the thing is that from a business, Apple, it'd be nice for Apple to do that, but they are not a charity. They're a business, and the business is that their business is that you can privately do a bunch of things really easily inside of this whole system. If you live inside that ecosystem, it just keeps getting better and better. Like for instance, I got a new Apple TV, and the number one problem I have with my Apple TV is I have to remember what all the stupid logins are for all these stupid apps that aren't just using Apple, and so like literally it's still sitting there waiting for me to go back and figure that all out, as opposed to if I just had bought it, and I don't know if I will. I may cancel a bunch of subscriptions to a bunch of things because I'm just like, if it doesn't have the Apple login, I'm just not going to bother because it's just too much trouble to set it up,
I'll give you two things, one of which will make you very, very happy from yesterday. But the first thing is that, Apple is they're running a business. They are absolutely fit to run the business however they are. The fact that they're being predicted that one analyst is predicting that they might their market cap might exceed $3 trillion, their valuation, sometime in the next year, shows that they know what they're doing and they have an audience for what they do. However, they're not. It's not so much that this is the greatest business decision. It's the decision that they want to make. Apple has never been a really great value proposition when it comes to living in the real world. At some point, you're just going to hit this wall, and you're either going to have to stay behind that wall, or there are people who are going to have to like switch to Evernote or switch to something else, because they're probably not going to switch to a $1,000 notebook again for the entry-level notebook, simply because one of these critical tools that some other people in their team are using don't work. Again, that's and they're perfectly welcome to do that. Now, as to Apple TV, did you see that a new feature allows you to actually use Face ID on your phone to log in to your services on Apple TV?
Oof. I'm here. It's me, Xfinity. It's me, your friend. HBO Max. It's me. If it works, but the problem is it has to work cross-platform. And a lot of these guys, I can't tell you how many times I have to go to ShowtimeAnytime.com/activate and type in my 6-digit code. It's like, give me a break.
The thing is that like I spent $30 a month on Tidal because I was doing some, I wanted to listen to immersive and listen to the Dolby Atmos stuff. Literally the moment that Apple announced that Spatial was available today, I literally, the first thing I did was go to my phone and cancel Tidal.
What about your Pono player, Alex?
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody want to buy a slightly used Pono player? I've got a beautiful one, Neil Young's autograph right on it. Anything.
But I think that the problem that a lot of these services don't realize is that the folks that their target market is bitter about it, growingly, and so that they have to type all that stuff in, and so they think I get that they're saving money by doing that, but there's people like us that are just like, I just can't wait. I can't wait until Apple. They just wait for Apple to do it. Like I just can't wait for Apple to do that so that I can get rid of the one that I have. And so that's the and that's not the I think that again I don't think. As someone who just wants it to work, and also on the back end, as someone who has to deal with the fact that Apple now has Apple TV on like for me, Apple TV on the TVs, installed into the TVs is kind of a disaster because it's just, or an Airplay and stuff like that, because I now have to deal with I have to build streams for underpowered TVs, and so I have to do all this extra work and make it way more complicated because I have to deal with it.
You're like Prince Farquhar in his castle.
No, it's just,
I mean, I have to deal with the plebes. I don't.
No, it's just that you work with a bunch of cheap manufacturers. And I get that it's a thing, but
that's
it's
life,
just like,
though. There's,
it doesn't have to be.
Those people on one side of the digital divide should not deprecate those on the other side. We need to make everybody.
But we're talking about someone who bought a $1,500 TV, and so they just better off buying a $1,300 TV and an Apple TV, and that just works.
They probably bought a $500 TV, a $600 TV.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Exactly. And they're still wondering why they spent $150 on a box that does very little more than a $50 dongle. So,
well, I guess it depends. Again, for the last 10 years, I haven't had anything other than like my interface to everything that I watch is the Apple TV. So I don't have any, because I won't let my TV touch the internet because that's crazy. Like it's letting your TV talk to the internet is not Like those companies are not your friends, and so they're going to use your data and they're going to use a bunch of other stuff. So
can I interject for 1 second that there's in my living room on my big like HDR 4K TV, the power button keeps like flashing on and off because it's telling me, hey, I haven't connected to the internet in like a year and I need to download updates. I fixed it by putting some gaffer tape over it. So I don't
exactly.
Do not connect your television to the internet, kids. Let Apple do it. That is, that's a good point. But at the same time, especially now that Apple is doing so much so much of what we saw yesterday was about integrating other people into your workflow, sharing, that it really does start to look like a privileged space, and this is going to be interesting for Apple to navigate because
I actually think, for instance, I don't think it's in Apple's best interest to get a larger market share because antitrust becomes a problem for them.
Well,
so it's like so the thing is
they lose control. I mean, they can't. They're at exactly the right market share to do exactly what they want to do, which is what they're doing right now. If they decided to go for 30%, suddenly they have to make a $600 laptop, and now they have to they have to give up some things that they like having that are unique to Apple. And we saw what happened in the early 90s when Apple tries to be yet another manufacturer of beige boxes that run desktop software. They can't do that. But there's so many, it works great in the Windows ecosystem because you have choice. You can, no matter what price point you're looking at, and no matter what features you want to get, you can probably find what you want. That's the benefit of Windows. The benefit of Mac is that it's a very, very simple menu. Everything on the menu is very, very good. And you know that they're all going to harmonize with each other very, very well.
Well, Apple can be a BMW. Apple can be a BMW. They don't need to be every different car manufacturer that they have. BMW doesn't also make $10,000 cars either.
Yeah, but can I just point out that this is something I only caught on the second viewing. Craig near the end of the presentation, Craig he pressed the magic button that teleports, wound up in the basement. He said, "Gee, I probably should have just taken the car." Wink, wink. Like, yay! We get that. You're being clever and puckish. We like that, Craig. Thank you.
He always has to sneak a few of those in there. That's his thing, isn't it? Yeah. And I took it to mean that really cool Aston Martin he was driving earlier, but maybe you're right. It was an Apple car. We don't.
He knew what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing the whole time. All right, let's talk about iCloud Plus because this is going to be very interesting. Already, Apple has said, by the way, iCloud Plus will not work in China, Belarus, a lot of authoritarian countries.
Although I found something out this morning, the South China Morning Post says they have a source that says that it will be available in Hong Kong.
Interesting.
Which
for
would be
how
very
long?
Interesting.
Because it's a VPN, right? I mean, it's clearly a VPN.
But better.
But better. It's kind of VPN plus a little Torish in it. So the idea is you have an encrypted connection to the iCloud from your computer or iPad or I presume iPhone. It's anything with a iCloud. Then goes through two different relays to further anonymize you. So you get get the benefits of a little bit of anonymization plus the encryption of a VPN. You don't get to choose. I'm sure you don't get to choose. What country you're going to be in.
No,
it's about security and privacy.
Yeah, and supposedly the secret sauce in here will not disguise where you're coming from. It will create a location for you that is relatively where you are. Right. And also they say that there's a way that it's not going to trip up a VPN if you're actually using a VPN. It's not going to trip up what I was trying to figure out is what happens when you're trying to use it with an app like a Facebook or something else where it says, hey, you're logging in from an IP address I've never seen before. You're going to have to do 3-factor, 4-factor, 8-factor authentication to make sure that it comes in. But
there's a lot of details we just don't know. Are they using a third-party provider? Or are they going to do it themselves?
They are. Yeah, the idea is that Apple knows who you are, but they don't know where you're going. They send it to a third-party partner, and they say that they're going to an outside partner that they say that they're going to be identifying later on in the year before they roll this out.
So a VPN
but this
provider,
third party. Well, no, it's probably not VPN. They didn't save those 3 letters anywhere. And the thing is that VPN is a standard. That means that they're doing something that's absolutely custom to what they're doing. So this third party, the second hop, knows where you're going, but it doesn't know who you are. So the idea is that the big advantage is that whereas I'm sure all of us use VPNs that are trustworthy, that don't keep information, and if they were handed a court order to say, please let me know exactly what Andy was doing through this VPN, they would say, we don't have any of that data. It's not stored anywhere. That's not true everywhere. The idea is that nobody knows where, nobody has the entire, both halves of the cookie. Apple can't tell anybody, and their partner can't tell anybody either. And the fact that it's part of iCloud Plus, and it basically happens whenever you're using Safari, that's pretty darn slick. Suddenly it's a reason why for iCloud to become an attractive proposition.
It's funny, Apple has really transcended its reputation as being terrible with cloud services, MobileMe, and I mean, they went through some bad times, but at this point, I think Apple is saying, no, we're good at cloud. We're good at, we know how to do this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's just part of there's a lot of, I said before that I might have to change like what my browser is and some other things based on some of these features I've seen. Mail privacy protection is just one thing that was like, that is absolutely such a slam dunk. The idea of hiding your IP address from magic pixels that are sort of tracking you and letting people know when an email's been opened. It's not unique. There are other services that will let you do that.
Lots of clients do it. Yeah.
But the idea is just baking. Well, who wouldn't want that? We'll just bake that right in. If they don't want it, they'll just turn it off. That's a slam dunk.
I think that at some point we get past the sleight of hand of all the little tricks that you have, the marketing tricks that people are trying to do, and it turns out if you have a really good product, you communicate with people. You can build a relationship with folks, and I think that's the trouble, that a lot of people want all this data.
Stacey Higginbotham was bemoaning it because she uses those tracking pixels to know what the open rate is on her newsletter. She doesn't charge for it. She knows which articles people read, which ones they didn't read. That's useful information. That's not about spying. She doesn't actually collect any personalized information, but those tracking pixels are used to give her information. Constant Contact does it. Everybody does it. Chimpbunky, whatever they're called.
MailChimp.
Yeah. Everybody does it. So those, and I think for reasons beyond just saying, oh, we need to know your name, address, and serial number, really to know a little bit more about. This is the problem with a lot of this anti-cookie stuff as well, is analytics are lost in the mix as well, not just ad tracking.
But we don't have that. We didn't have that before. I get that they want it. I mean, I get that people want to have that. But when I send out an email to 4,000 people a day, and and I see a certain response to what they're doing. Do I know exactly what they're doing? No, but I have a pretty good idea of what percentage is going to come watch office hours and how they're going to do it. And when I had an email list, I don't know, 20 years ago or 15 years ago that had 70 or 80,000 people in it, I'd send an email out and I had a pretty good sense of what was going to be the response of it. And I don't know, maybe I could have done it better. But the bottom line is that we didn't have this stuff before, and we still did marketing campaigns. I mean, people didn't have, they
I guess you're right. We'll get over it. Huh?
It's just that producing that content and again, I just think that the developing relationships and with your audience is going to be important. It's going to continue to be important, and I think that we're going to continue. People have to, when we get back into let's be in the real world. The real world is people are turning all this stuff off. That's what's coming, is all of this stuff's going to get blacked out, because people aren't going to want to play anymore. Yeah. So that's the reality of what marketers have to understand, and what they have to figure out now is that they can't just use those tools. They're actually going to have conversations and build relationships with their audience, rather than a transactional relationship where they just kind of send them stuff and measure them like cattle.
I think that might be a little bit simplistic. Because the reason why advertising is a product that digital advertising is a product that advertisers love, because it's 20 years ago they did not have the ability to see. I don't want to send a mailer to 30,000 people hoping that I'll hear that 1.1% of 1% of them will be people who are interested in that ad. I really want to target the people who are most likely to actually be interested in this content. I also want to see where's my money paying off. I have a limited amount of money to spend on advertising. I want to make sure that, my God, I bought this ad on MacBreak Weekly, and my God, we're buying 3 boats, a boat to stack on top of the other boat for the helicopter to land on. This is the product that advertisers want. I don't think that it'll be as simple as, well, gosh, we can't do this anymore because Apple's turning off all these switches on us. So we're just going to have to create a more intimate relationship with our potential customers. I'm wondering what will happen at the point where the advertising industry decides that, look, we love you, Apple. We know we don't want to have unrestricted access to users, or at least we accept we can't have unrestricted access. But you're making it real awkward out there. And if we don't want to have a situation in which if people want to be paid based on advertising, we have to tell these sites, you are going to here's some code that you're going to be putting into your site that says that if these features are turned on Safari, we will not display your content because we can't make any money off of you. So you're going to have to make some sort of an accommodation. At some point, I think there's going to have to be a negotiation between everybody, between the 5 families of Apple, Google, Facebook, and everybody else to decide, is there a way that we can have targeted ads and make them work and actually make them pay off? The last thing I'll say is that using the iPad. I'm so glad that there's going to be Safari plugins for iPadOS, because the one thing I've missed so deeply are my ad blockers. And this is the first time that I've been getting like ads on my iPad, and a lot of them are stupid ads that have nothing to do with me. If you're going to show me like that Victorinox has a new Swiss Army knife that has exactly the tools I want, okay, I feel stupid, but I will click on that ad because I'm interested in that. But if you're going to tell me that, hey, here, if you got your beach house on a 3rd mortgage, we can sell you a 4th mortgage. Well, I don't have a beach house, and I also have an IQ of greater than 30, so I don't want to actually have a quarterly refinance on my house. I'm not opposed to it. I just think that there's going to have to be a meeting of the minds to decide how are we going to get people to pay for it? How are we going to make this stuff pay for itself? In a world in which privacy is becoming much more in people's forebrains from now on.
Let's move on.
I just want to
go ahead. Sorry, you get a final word.
I just think that the problem for advertisers is the more they have the conversation in public, the more gooey it feels. And so the issue they're going to have is they can't really argue that much in public because people will be less likely to want them to do it. Apple's is in a place of leverage, because the average user, the more you find out about how much you're being tracked, the less you want it. And so advertisers can't really get that public about it because it's icky.
Honestly, what's happening, I'll be, to be perfectly honest, is all that's happening is first parties like Apple, Google, and Facebook are owning all the information, and by eliminating third-party tracking. That's all that's happening. And that you are absolutely still being tracked. It's like the guy who said, I don't want to see the tracker when I download your podcast, so I'm going to watch it on YouTube. And my answer is, good, that's great. YouTube doesn't care who you are. First-party tracking is the problem, and that's not going away. The problem is now it's concentrated in the hands of just the big 5 because they're the only ones who can do it. And so that's not what's happening here. The idea is not we are defending the poor people from tracking. There's a Hide My Email, which will allow you to create unique random email addresses. I presume you're going to have to use iCloud, although this is interesting, iCloud Mail. And I don't think they mentioned this. It says on the iOS 15 preview, personalize your iCloud mail address with a custom domain name.
Yeah.
That's new, and I think that's... See, if I might use iCloud as my mail provider if I can have my own domain.
Oh, wow. They've really turned iCloud into something that's worth having from now on. Not only just these great features, but call me a stuffed shirt, but I can afford $12 a year to own NDI.com and notgo.com. I don't want to have an Apple address. I don't want to have a Gmail address. I don't have an AOL.com address, and that's why I just don't use my iCloud email for anything at all. So yeah, they've at some point I don't know who got fired or who got hired to take a good, hard, deep, come to Jesus look at iCloud, but they have come to Jesus when it comes to iCloud, definitely.
If you have the other thing that Apple really opened up, and this is because of the alliance, I believe, that they did, the chip alliance with the other home automation manufacturers, now called Matter. Apple mentioned Matter on stage. They are going to interoperate. Siri will be on devices. If you have a HomeKit camera, Apple doesn't make any cameras, but if you had a HomeKit secure camera, you could store your video on iCloud Unlimited. It doesn't count against your iCloud storage as part of your subscription. That's a very interesting move as well, especially since it's not their cameras.
Yeah. Just to clarify, it's not going to be Siri on the devices, but audio can, like a thermostat can pass audio to your HomePod, and then Siri can process it and will be passed over to a saved away.
Yes, so
I was really excited when I thought that.
So your Ecobee won't be listening to you, but you will somehow it'll interact because you have the HomeKit home base, which is your Apple TV.
You have to have the HomePod, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You still have to have a HomePod in order to make this work. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. But it's still, and Apple is being a little bit more open, which is, I think, very, very interesting. Lots of other, gosh, I could just go on and on.
Yeah.
They did so much in such a short period of time.
Before we leave Siri, just the fact that they're doing so much more on device right now, that's one of the biggest complaints that people have had about Siri, that it's so slow and it just is not very, very agile. So the fact that it has the ability now to process so much on device and also handle so many simple commands without having to connect to anybody, that means that you're going to get responses really, really quickly. You're going to be able to have like contextual conversations, so to speak, so much more easily. I think that this is going to be a big smarts upgrade for Siri, and also the variety of voices that they're adding to it. So that's no longer Siri, this lady. It is now.
I turned on voice 3. Micah told me turn on voice 3. It's a hipster kind of voice. Let me see if I can. What would be good if I asked it a question? I forgot. I can't do it that way.
What was Fish's third album?
I'm turning off my mic. Hey, unfortunately, it heard that part. This is the new.
It's currently clear and 64 degrees. Expect partly cloudy skies starting tonight. Temperatures are heading down from 64 degrees to 52 tonight.
That's like a hipster voice. I like it.
He's bright. He's happy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't want to.
It doesn't. I always think of Siri as a female, so it's a little.
Yeah, that was always kind of a not a bad mistake, but it was like they could have done if they had come out with Siri 5 years later, they would have known not to make her definitively a female. They would have done something like the Google Assistant, which is called the Google Assistant. If you want to choose a voice for the Google Assistant, we've got them labeled by colors, and you decide which ones you want.
I think that's smart. Yeah, the Apple Wallet stuff is fascinating to me. It could be something that just doesn't happen. It's just Apple being aspirational, but the idea is the Apple Wallet will now store your state ID and your perhaps TSA, in fact, the information in a way that I thought was very privacy forward. The TSA can interactively, digitally ask for information it needs, and Apple will pass it over to them. But really, the idea of ditching a physical wallet, I use my Apple Pay all the time. The question is, which states? Apple didn't say. CNET's done a pretty good job of going through what it thinks might be the first states. This is Russell Holly writing at CNET. He says Louisiana might be the first because they already have a digital state ID service. Oklahoma, Delaware, all of this because they've already got some sort of mobile ID system. Arizona, Utah, 100 people in Utah are currently testing the state's digital ID system. Iowa, perhaps. Florida, perhaps. Maryland. So it's certainly going to take a while to launch. And then, of course, you got to get the states to go along with it. And I remember what happened with the COVID tracking stuff that nobody used it. So... Well, my big question still is that remember that when they talked about this during the keynote, they were talking specifically about leaving your wallet at home, not hey, here's a more convenient way. Like, no, you're going to leave your wallet at home. It's all going to be on your phone. So what happens when you get pulled over by the cops and they need to see your driver's license? Are you going to hand over your phone and let him or her carry it back to the squad car and do whatever he wants with it? Is it going to be unlocked at that point? There's some things that I feel like I have half of the story. Yeah,
on,
exactly.
And I hope that I'm sure Apple will clarify by the time they get.
It seems more aspirational than something that's really going to happen.
And we had a discussion about that last night. And I think that I think that the situation with it is that you can put it in a state where you can't get to the rest of the phone, but you can,
Yes.
it'll sit on the front. So you can hand it to the cop and they'll walk off with it.
You can do that right now with
theoretically,
first
but they can't do it.
responders. I hope everybody's filled out their stuff in their health apps so that first responders can get your contact in case of emergency contact number and maybe any allergies and so forth. I certainly have, and I tell everybody to do that.
Yeah. But my question
that's
is
without unlocking the phone.
If you use the wallet app to say, please display my driver's license, I'm about to hand it over to a cop, will it automatically lock up your phone so that this becomes a $1,200 gadget that does nothing but show a picture of a state ID? Or is it something where I'm going to have to remember to press the sleep button 5 times in a row to make sure that biometrics don't work and that it can't unlock
I'm sure
itself?
Apple will solve that in appropriate.
And probably for me,
but I wish they'd explain that.
If California adopted it, what I'd probably do is put my driver's license in with my registration and have a little envelope, in there. Like that's what I give to the police officer, and then I use my ID for everything else. And I think that a lot of us would love to have the convenience of not having to. I mean, I'm down to a handful of cards. Like I'm not out of cards yet, but I'm getting pretty close. To not having any cards left.
And frankly, there's a good use case for it right now, which is a vaccination pass, and I don't see anybody doing that either. So I think this is one of those things where it would really be nice if, and we're going to give you a way to do it but I somehow don't think that's going to take off.
And once again, we talk about the ethics of this. How can we deploy this kind of feature in a way that you don't have to have a $1,200 phone in order to wake up at work? How about these people who have a $200 blister pack phone or a pay-as-you-go phone?
Right. Well, they are going to have to just bring their driver's license with them. I guess. True. There are, and it's good work from 9 to 5 Mac, a number of features Apple unveiled that will only be available on Macs with the M1 processor. If you bought an M1 Mac or maybe an M1 iPad, good news. Portrait mode on FaceTime in Monterey will require an M1. Lots of processing power for that. Live text and photos. That by the way, is something that both Microsoft and Google have been doing for some time, which is Google calls it their Lens, or Microsoft
we can be happy for Apple users that they have it.
It's
There's
nice.
no need to gloat, saying it's a great feature. I love Google Lens. I use it all the time, and I'm so glad that people on iPhones and iPads will get a chance to use it.
I do love the idea that I could, if I take a picture of a billboard and there's a phone number on it, select it and press call, is very cool. If it works. That live text and photos will only be available for M1. The interactive globe and daily and detailed new city experiences on Apple Maps, M1 Max, so it won't be in your car. Object capture with macOS Monterey, users will be able to turn the 2D images into a photorealistic 3D image. That photogrammetry we were talking about, that's going to be on an M1. Neural text-to-speech voice in more languages only available to the M1 Max, Swedish, Danish, Norwegian, and Finnish. On-device dictation needs an M1. So there are lots of reasons to have an M1. The good news is that's going to be ubiquitous soon, I think. I was hoping maybe I'd be getting a 16-inch M1 MacBook Pro this week, but I guess not. Mac Mini.
Thank God we get a chance to let our wallets recover. Before
Honestly,
we have to go
after
digital.
buying that iPad Pro, I shouldn't buy another computer for 5 years. But
can I just tell you how relieved I am that like my bet paid off. That okay, good. They really are giving the ball to the iPad and sending it down the line.
Yes.
If it were just now we've got now you can create your own Memoji on the iPad. Like I should have bought at least the 10-inch model and saved myself $600.
watchOS 8 has a lot of new features. Portrait. I was surprised to hear them say the number one watch face is photos. Anyway, how would they know that if they don't track me? Never mind. Portrait mode photos.
It's the only way to do custom watch faces. People are doing such clever hacks to make a custom watch face.
Right.
It's not just a photo. They've created something that looks like a Casio
point.
watch.
That's the key, right? There'll be, let's see, what else? I love the gait analysis feature, which will tell you if you're starting to get to the point where you might be falling. That's fantastic. You'll be able to use the digital crown to scroll precisely to the spot in the message you want to edit. Should have been there for a long time. There's lots of stuff. There's the new mindfulness they're adding to breathe. They're adding reflect to breathe, which will say, just think about good things. They'll have an affirmation and so forth.
Can we also highlight that they've added a big section and new section to human interface guidelines all about inclusion.
Good.
An inclusive app puts people first by prioritizing respectful communication and presenting content and functionality in ways that everyone can access and understand. To help you design an inclusive app, consider the following goals as you review the words and images you use and experiences you offer. And it goes step by step by step about, I mean, the bullet list of things that they want people to take a look at is like 1, 2, 3, 4, like at least a dozen long. And this is. I mean, when I read about this, I had to say it on Twitter, and I said it last week on last week's show too. At some point, either a company cares about this stuff or they don't care about this stuff. There's a lot of reasons why they don't do things, and it can be a very, very complicated set of variables. But at a company the size of Apple, the size of Google, the size of Facebook, whatever they want to do, they can absolutely do that. And the fact that Apple does this means that they categorically care about this stuff, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, I wish I hadn't spent. I wish I was making 4 times as much money as I was, so $1,400 for an iPad didn't hurt quite so much. But I feel good giving my money to Apple because I don't think they're a bunch of jerks who don't care.
Absolutely agree with you. But I also have to point out the little bit of a disconnect between the inclusivity of Apple in that respect and the exclusivity of Apple's hardware. Of
course.
So, you know, and that's why it's a little jarring when Apple, you know, says, well, yeah, but we don't want to talk to those Android people. It's like you're inclusive in one way, but exclusive in another, you know.
And as usual, we believe that privacy is a human right to everybody.
Except in China.
Again, exactly. Okay, well, we won't get into that, but it's like, oh, please just stop saying it. All you got to do is stop saying it like it's the biggest thing that you believe in, but that's okay.
Right. Hey, they're a business. That's the fact.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. There's new memories on your watch. I don't know if I want to look at pictures on my watch, but you can now. Little teeny weeny pictures. They make it really big on the page, but it won't be that big. It'll be on your wrist. Sharing photos via messages and mail through the watch is great. They're really upping all of that sharing. Your watch will be a smart home device more and more. You could see your doorbell on your watch. Who are those people? They're so tiny.
You know, that actually is useful, though. I mean, you know, being able to look at your watch and being able to see the video from your it's enough for you to see.
No, I do. My Nest does that. I use the Nest app, and when there's somebody in my backyard, I get a notification on my watch and a picture.
Yeah, true.
And it's always my cat.
Speaking of little people, I love the new watch face they created that automatically harvests from your photo reel. Here are portraits. We will actually automatically create portrait-based ones, and we'll also use the 3D information that we get from the depth sensor to put your kid's face in front of the time.
Isn't that
so
clever?
that it looks like a 3D sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that is a sort of like that's a delicious feature.
Yeah.
And Apple does delicious features.
And when you turn the crown, let me see if I can get it to do that. The faces zoom in. You're looking at me. Now, I think you make a good point, Andy. It won't just be faces. It might be your Casio wallpaper doing that. So just keep that in mind. So a lot of new features going into Watch. Watch is part of the ecosystem. What's interesting, they have not up to now used the UWB chip that they built into the Apple Watch Series 6. Well, now your digital car key, if you have a BMW, will recognize you as you approach. You can unlock the door, activate an alarm, access climate controls because it'll know where you are and where it is.
Will it work on my 1999 Mercury Sable with 160,000 miles?
No, I'm afraid not. Do you really have a Mercury Sable? Because that's a nice car.
That was my last car, and it at some point it had too many New England winters.
I can totally see you driving a rusty Mercury Sable around. I won't turn this into a rat hole, but I love fleet vehicles. I love fleet vehicles where they're made to be repaired. Yeah.
They're made so that parts are always available. I kept it alive for the last 40,000 miles by they would tell me, oh, it needs such and so. Okay, great. I'll go to the junkyard one town over, keep walking around. Okay, great. Here's the part that I need. How much is it? $30. Great. You just take some wrenches, get some rusties, get them in, and then suddenly you put it back on again.
Go on over to Andy's Pick and Pull. We got parts, all kinds of parts. Get your Mercury Sable parts over here at Andy's Pick and Pull.
At some point, there was nothing to bolt things onto. It was just all rusted right there. But hey,
oh, those New England winters, I tell you. Yeah. I swear. There's new features on not just the watch, but iOS as well as macOS for focusing to filter out distractions. What are you doing? What do you want to focus on? You want to drive? Okay, let's drive. You want to do a study break? Let's do it. I think that's great. This is where Apple really does a great job, I think, of paying attention to your wellness, you know.
And once again, how this applies to the entire experience, where suddenly in iMessages, someone tries to send you a message, they will be so, oh, I'm sorry, but Sheila is resting right now, unless you've said, hey, this is an emergency thing, I've let this person through no matter what, and. Again, the way that this ecosystem works together, little features like the ability to share something with iCloud, AirDrop, those are big features. Those are nice. But the real elegance is when you have simple features like that, where I've turned off Do Not Disturb on my phone, and suddenly it's on my watch, it's suddenly on my Mac, and anybody who tries to message me is going to be told, please wait. And you are, again, I'll see if he's in. No, he's not in.
Hey, by the way, Scooter X has found you an excellent 2000 Mercury Sable LS Premium, only 82,000 miles, $3,995 if you're interested.
Does it have the CD changer in the trunk?
I'll have to check. It does have leather seats, and keyless entry.
There you go.
I don't think that means it works with the iPhone.
It also has that feature where like it's a sedan, but you can like flap down like the
love that.
You can flap down the
giant
rear seats, and put in like a whole sheet of plywood in there.
Nice.
It's a sweet ride, I'm telling you.
Sweet ride, baby. Anything else? What when you did office hours, Alex? What were the big yesterday? What were the big people were really excited about? Anything that we've not mentioned?
Health. I mean, I think that a lot of the health stuff I think people are interested in.
Tai Chi and Pilates. From
the programmer's perspective, I think it was the putting it in the cloud. You know, so having being able to develop in the cloud. I think that from a general, I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about the photogrammetry and spatial, but that's partially because I'm excited about it. But also. I think that people were bringing up the fact that, a lot of this stuff can get really interesting, and it kind of underlines why the privacy is so important, because you can't start talking about medical records and you can't start talking about a lot of those things until you have that conversation about privacy and until you really tie that all the way down. And Apple's doing that pretty well. And again, I think that right now it'll be probably slow for people to put all the records into the cloud. But when you start tying the records together with biometric data, you're going to start seeing patterns that are going to save a lot of people's lives. You're going to see patterns that we don't see right now. That
completely agree.
When your gait starts to change. Yeah. Literally, I was talking to a developer. This is 10 years ago, and he said, I can tell what your heartbeat is by how you're walking. Yep. Like he said, I don't even need to hear your heart. I can tell you what it is. And so the thing is that your gait is changing, or your heart rate's changing, or your blood pressure's changing. And I can tell you in 6 months, you have a 90% chance of having a heart attack. Like that's the kind of stuff that's going to happen down the road, where when you have this, and I think that's going to be, and then when you think about integrating that with exercise, integrating that with your diet and health and all these other things, the problem is people don't do a lot of those things because they're complicated, and they can't. Like how do you figure it all out? Well, if something is just works, for it also starts to make it more accessible. And so I think that that's going to be a really interesting kind of new market for Apple.
Yeah. I hope this is we'll see some stuff coming out of the labs that indicate that Apple really is moving towards making the Apple Watch more like the iPhone or the original iPod, where it is an entity in and of itself. You don't need to pair it to an iPhone specifically, and you can bring all of these health benefits and all these fitness benefits to everybody, not just people who use iPhones.
Yeah.
Very, very exciting. And like Andy, like you, it's funny. I was really looking forward to hardware, but I'm also like you, relieved that I could let the steam clear on my credit card. And
yeah. And if they'd announced like a new Mac Mini that had now has 8 processors and it's going to be $2,200, which Andy is which is just about what you can afford. Like, oh damn it!
I know. Yeah. Well, good.
Wait till 2020.
I've really decided I want a Pro Mac Mini. I'm really hoping, but I think what we may see is next month. That we maybe July is not a good time to announce something. I don't know, but I don't think. Yeah, they're going to wait till September now, aren't they?
I think so, and actually, selfishly, I'm glad because I have absolutely no regrets that I bought an M1 MacBook Pro as soon as they came out, because I've been getting so much stuff done over the past
device.
that I was not able to do with my 2015 MacBook Pro. But I would have felt a little bit of a geek in my neck. It's like, oh, by the way, for the exact same amount of money, now we have the M2 processor and it has the SD card slot and has all this other stuff. So at least we get that. But yeah, I'm guessing September or October.
And some of this is because of chip shortages, isn't it? It's I know Apple bought up all the TSMC production, but I just feel like
they don't have every chip. They don't have every component. Even the panels can be a problem these days. So
So I think that makes sense. That and you know, they're not going to announce something in the dog days of summer. So September. Yep.
Yeah, it's weird. I've been told, and I haven't been corrected about this in the past 3-4 years, that May is usually a great time to announce a new notebook, because that's the time when a lot of buying decisions get made for the fall quarter. And so that's when, rightly or wrongly, I kind of wonder if this is going to be a time to do that. And if they haven't done it by now, I think that they have another quarter in order to figure out what they want to do.
Yeah.
But that's just a guess.
All right, let's take a little break. When we come back, your picks of the week. What? Yes? Anything?
Nope. I said, yay. Hey, yay. Wonderful.
Take a break while I shave my pits. No, I'm going to... That's a segue, isn't it?
Let me move the chair up closer to the monitor.
You know, I was talking with my trainer, and I wear these pulse monitor chest band, and he says, "Yeah, I can't wear that. My chest is too hairy." And I said, "How's your wife feel about that?" Although I think chest hair not so bad, back hair not so good. So there are places where hair is a good thing. There are places where hair is a bad thing. But I want to tell you about the best way to groom the hirsute man, Manscaped. It's the only men's brand dedicated to below-the-waist grooming, and their brand-new shaving tools are just in time for Father's Day. Trust me, Dad will not be insulted. Dad will be grateful when you show up with, look at this. This is actually beautiful. I just took it out of the box. What does it say? Yeah, I'm not going to read that. They do that to me every time. You open the boxes and it's, whoa, okay. It says it's a whole new ball game. Sort of. This is the new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. Now, this is 4.0 implies it's their 4th generation, and you would be right if you would guess that. And man, it gets better and better and better. I love the new sculpted shape, which really makes it easy to hold. It's small. It's not big. It's not heavy. It is a 7,000 RPM trimmer. Why do you want something that fast? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, because less pulling. You know, it clips it so fast, it just smoothly glides over your skin. But also, it's quieter. You can. I'm holding this right up to the microphone. If I hold it away from the microphone, you can't even hear it. It's moving that fast. It means it's not chatter, chatter, chatter. It's 7,000 RPM, featuring skin-safe technology to reduce what we euphemistically call manscaping accidents. The new multi-function on-off switch can engage a travel lock. You really don't want to have to say, no, that's not my manscaping, lady. Created for jet setters. The 4th, you don't want the TSA saying, what's buzzing, lady? That's my husband's manscaper, the lawnmower in there. The 4000K LED spotlight, which is really great when you're navigating through those hard-to-see areas. I'm not saying you're doing this at night. I'm just saying, sometimes the light does not penetrate the thicket. You guys, also additional guard lengths from sizes 1 to 4. So we're not talking, bald here. We're talking just looking a little groomed. The craftsmanship, the details, it just feels great in your hand. You know this is a next generation product, and it's beautiful. And Dad will know, too. It'll really feel good in his hands. If you want to get, and I'm talking about the clipper at this point, if you want to get the complete package, I'm sorry, this ad just lends itself.
I'm sorry. I'm 11 years old. I cannot stop giggling.
If you want to get the complete package, don't forget the Manscaped Ultra Smooth package. This is a 3-step kit to keep your family jewels shining, buffed up. You get step 1, the Crop Exfoliator, infused with ingredients that soothe, clear, and keep the skin on and around your groin feeling refreshed and reducing the risk of ingrown hairs by your delicates. There's the Crop Gel. See where you're shaving with a unique clear shaving gel just for your special spaces. And when it's time to shave, I really love this shaver. So if you don't want to use a clipper, this is a shaver, which of course gives you a very nice smooth feel. And it's just the right size. See how it's a little tiny thing? Perhaps you've been borrowing your spouse's lady shaver. This is a manly shaver with not one but two extra wide lubricating strips, a pivoting head, and just, the right size to really get in them. By the way, all of these are vegan, cruelty-free, and really the cruelty I care about is a cruelty to me, and sulfate-free products, so your manhood is in good hands. Get 20% off plus free shipping. I really love these Manscaped products, and I think your dad will. For dads and grads, this is a great gift. Manscaped.com/twit. The perfect package for you and dad's perfect package. It's 20% off and free shipping. Go to manscaped.com/twit. It's dad bod season. Time to get smooth. You don't want to look like a Sasquatch when you're headed out to the beach. I know, I'm 11 years old too, Andy. I know exactly.
They should do a special promotion for Rocky Horror Picture Show fans. I get my nicks below the waistline, sunshine. Maybe I'm 10 years old. I don't know.
Did you know that's their slogan? No nicks. That's the point.
No nicks, right?
No
exactly.
nicks. Okay. Manscaped.com/twit. Great deal. Free shipping and 20% off. Thank you, Manscaped, for supporting Mac Break Weekly. Thank you for supporting us by using that address, by the way, so they know you saw it here. We actually have a problem because all our audience members are so smart. They know exactly how to do it. I type in Manscaped. It's easy. And so they never go to those special URLs. Please do that for us just so they know you saw it here. Alex Lindsay kicks the pics off. Go ahead, Alex. Oh, muted.
One of the things that that we do a lot of that makes it easier to work with Blackmagic cameras is the fact that it has an open architecture, so you can actually program things.
You're really going to get me to buy one of these, aren't you? I know you are. Gosh darn.
It's just it's not. I'm not recommending the Black. I think I've already recommended all the Blackmagic cameras.
I know you have.
So but it's one of the big reasons that we like it, and one of the things that you can do is it's got a Bluetooth built in, and there's a lot of different developers that have figured out how to basically talk to the phone, talk to the camera. And so BM Cam Control is one of the ones that we use. We've been using it all the last couple of weeks to run the camera. So basically, it'll go in there and it will. You can change your frame rate.
This is the one from Blackmagic. Is this the one that you were talking about? Blackmagic Camera Control.
Yeah. There's a lot of different ones. Blackmagic Camera Control is one of them. So they make their own, but there's a lot of other ones that are developing. And basically, what's interesting here is that you can control all the bits and pieces of the camera. There are a lot of them. You can check them all out. That are there. This is the Blackmagic one that we have installed on a bunch of our stuff. But the main thing is that software will talk to the camera. It will get all that camera information back, and then let you make changes, your frame rate, your shutter speed, your record styles, like all the interface that you have in the camera. It will actually allow you to make changes without having to go over there. And so especially like right now, I have a camera that's sitting in front of me. If I want to change something, I don't have to walk around. And if I put it in a place that I can't get to, I don't have to deal with that. And oftentimes it's a lot more convenient. One of the things what's cool about it is also runs on the M1, so that we can actually, when we send out our big kits, we have a 6K, Blackmagic 6K, and we have the M1 that has Wingman, which is what we run a mix pre with, as well as this software, which is what we run the camera with. So to be a Bluetooth, we're able to make all the final adjustments to the camera. We can actually have it hit autofocus. We can do a lot of other things with it in that process. So it's pretty slick, and so it's a great little app that you can download if you have a Blackmagic camera, and it's another reason that you should. Like it's
great.
The big thing is that with these cameras, when you go into that price point and you decide you're going to buy a nice camera to go out and shoot, it's just the flexibility of these cameras is what makes them so useful. And there's a lot of things about Sony cameras that are great, and Panasonic and Canon all have great cameras. It's this open architecture that, while this is the one that I'm recommending is made by Blackmagic, there's like 5 or 6 of them that run Blackmagic cameras. So you have choice over how you want that interface to work, and anybody can build controls for almost all the Blackmagic hardware, which is just really makes it a lot easier for us to work. But this is a great one if you're in that Blackmagic stable already. Definitely figure out how to run your camera from your iPad or M1 or phone.
Nice. Nice. Wow. Someday I can dream. A boy can dream.
I'm telling you, you got to move the whole studio to Blackmagic. You're using.
Well, we use the. No, we don't. I have an ATEM at home.
Canons.
But we have a lot of Canons and a lot of old crappy consumer grade stuff.
They look good though.
They're fine.
They look good. Yeah,
I'm not unhappy.
Absolutely.
We do use the Blackmagic converters, the mini converters. That's about it. We use the Video Hub. Actually, that thing. Without that. That's the 77 in, 144 out video switcher that without that, I don't think we would have been able to do anything that we've done.
It's all about a router.
Yeah, it's all about the routing. Mr. Andy Nako, pick of the week, my friend.
I picked something kind of weird this week because I found it really cool and interesting. There's Adrian Black has a YouTube channel called Adrian's Digital Basement, and he recently did a video in which he added an HDMI out to a stock classic Macintosh, like your basic like Mac Plus, Mac Classic, because apparently there is this project, this board that a hat that goes onto Raspberry Pi called RGB to HDMI board that was built for the BBC Micro to take the digital signal from there and take it HDMI. He thought, hey, I bet there's a way that I can sort of adapt this and to make it work with a Mac Classic. And I was surprised. It's a really cool, nicely made video where he's like removing things, putting things inside the logic board, and it's fun to watch. But also, emulation of classic Macs is absolutely nothing new. But when you do like a capture, when you're trying to preserve the culture of early Macs, you're never seeing the software running on actual original hardware pixel perfect. You're seeing someone who did a window capture from whatever emulation they're using. This is actually a way that you can, of course, HDMI out, so you can put connect it to an HDMI capture and now get pixel perfect video recordings of the startup process, the speed, how fast is the disk access really. And I really do feel as though like this is part of our culture and our history that now if this technology is put into the right hands, we can now preserve by actually capturing videos of what's the play time, what's the play of Shufflepuck Cafe or Dark Castle like, or what was it like to try to write a 10-page document in Mac Write, including all the disk swaps? How slow was it? And of course the funny thing is that the Raspberry Pi that you put this hat on, it's got to be at least 10 times more powerful than the Macintosh that you're actually putting inside.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a fun video for you to watch. I think for maybe 3 or 4, hopefully 8 of you who are listening, you think, wow, I kind of would like to do like HDMI out so I could like put this on a big display and I can actually like show it to other people or do video capture and capture these projects that I did as a developer. There is a solution now. We can do non-emulation, pixel perfect, HDMI out and capture to your Mac or to whatever else.
I like the on the Mac computer, he's the Classic 2. He's got the price stickers, and it looks like the price was slowly getting marked down. Let me see here.
Yeah, exactly. I got a bunch of Macs like that where
$20, $10, $8. The final price looks like it was $6.50.
Yeah,
so
they realize, this is a rare collectible. People are going to be spending $300 for this. I'm sure someone will spend $200 for this. Well, it's the economy, maybe $100, and at some point it's like $5. Please just get it out of here. It's taking up time.
Stickers not included. Really cool. Very cool. What's the name of the YouTube channel again?
It's called Adrian's Digital Basement. And if you just look for adding HDMI to a stock Macintosh Classic, you'll find it.
That's a great idea. He looks like he does a lot of fun things.
Adrian Black, right? He is. You love these people who are actual engineers who know, who is not going to be fazed by. I know that the Mac Classic does not have an RGB digital output, but I bet that it's got to be digital somewhere. All I got to do is figure out what to unsolder and what to solder in.
I'm pretty impressed. Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you probably can't or won't be able to do that with modern stuff because it's all surface mounted and highly integrated. So it's nice when you look at a motherboard that actually has capacitors on it. It's kind of cool to see. It looks like stuff is all soldered on by hand. It's kind of amazing.
The sort of board you can fix just by smelling it, and when you smell when part of the board smells really, really bad, you know that okay, I'm going to desolder that chip.
Yeah, oopsies,
and replace that and see how that works.
Andy Anako, GBH. When are you on next?
Friday at 1 this week. Just go to wgbhnews.org and you can stream it either live or later.
And I can guess you'll be talking about the Apple event.
Going to be talking about the Apple event. We're going to be talking also, I'm putting together, trying to come up with a list of all the different pieces, all the different laws that about privacy that that the Republicans and Democrats are trying to push forward, and basically using Apple's template of, oh, well, Apple's doing things that Google and Facebook say they can't do. Maybe we should just legislate them their butts all the way back to Helsinki and see how that makes them happy. So yeah, there's a lot of, it's going to be fun.
I'm trying to think of how I talk about what Apple talked about yesterday to a general audience on the radio show, because
it's fun.
Yeah, there'll be a handful of things you'll go, oh, that'll be interesting. You'll appreciate that. I think the new Note integration might be the most useful thing, but we'll have to see.
You have to come up with what's the big story about it, or
right?
How
yes.
It's about making a macaroon or macaron, not a cake,
right?
That's part of what makes it so much fun.
Challenging,
doing NPR.
Yeah, well, I look forward to stealing from the best. Of course, Alex Lindsay does not have time constraints. He's got infinite amounts of time. Well, there's only 24 hours in a day, so I guess you're still somewhat limited. Office hours, youtube.com/Alex Lindsay. There's an invite in there if you want to participate. You can also go to the new webpage. Are you getting a little bit more content?
Oh, yeah. We're right now the webpage is really supporting our WWDC stuff this week, but then officehours.global.
And which one is you? The one with the hat?
Yeah, exactly. Renee's there. We had everybody in there. We're still figuring out Thursday. We're kind of talking to a couple people to bring them in, and so we had a lot of fun, and we're supporting WWDC right now, and then next week we'll keep on adding more. There's a lot of tools, both tools for our members as well as tools to find out more about it. But it's the beginning.
It's pretty cool.
That process.
Yeah, but everything you need is there, including you can fill out a form saying I'd like to be part of the group. You can see what's coming up this week, right. and so
there's a lot of office hours rebuilds right now because we're changing changing how we do the show. So we're really building it more towards a broadcast. It was just kind of us all hanging out in Zoom until last week. And so now we're building the second hour of that show really becomes much more of a broadcast.
Nice.
But a global broadcast where the team that's running it is all over the world, and we'll probably end up having, 15 or 20 people any given day working on the broadcast itself. And so we put out a thing for volunteers. I was like, maybe some people will help us do what we're doing. And there's over 100 said yes. So now we're figuring out how to apply it.
It's really cool.
Alex, if you had a third hour like the Today Show, could I be your Kathy Lee and or Hoda? I feel like I could drink Chardonnay and get really drunk and be a really bad interviewer for a whole hour and just. I
think you should come on more often.
How are you guys?
Third hour.
I don't know what you're talking about. It should be fun. Alex Lindsay on the Twitter, AlexLindsay, and of course YouTube.com/.
And you can see the thing we streamed with the developers and Justine and Renee yesterday. There,
yes, it's all there.
It turned out pretty well. It's kind of amazing what you can do with Zoom.
Like we're doing it here too. That was a terrific pen. I was so busy doing research this morning, I didn't have time to watch it, but I flagged it to watch it later on. You really put together a murderer's row of talent last night. It was. I would have loved to participate, but my God, it's going to be great to just be able to watch that. It's such a great value you've created.
Yeah, it was. It got to a point where we just had so many. We were like, how many people can we add?
No, exactly.
We wanted to leave enough space for the developers.
Oh no! I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. But I meant sometimes like you're at a rock musician at a concert saying, I really would have loved to be up there jamming, but it's so great to be in the audience, to be able to enjoy and watch this as an audience member, and that's what so many of your shows are.
Well, the other thing you do, and you must have a lot of volunteers, but because I always have wanted to do this, but it's just so much effort. Is you've got all of the direct
Jeffrey
links.
Powers.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Jeffrey Powers does that in real time. Like he's
like your secretary, writing it all down.
No, he's Geekzine, and he has Geekzine.
No, I know who Jeff is. Yeah.
And so Jeffrey Jeffrey does that for our shows, and it's just amazing. He does it in real time. So as we're doing it, it's just like boom, 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 boom.
So
boom,
if you want to say, if you want to know, well, how will Xcloud code change my development workflow? You can go right to 5320. Just click the link and it's there. That is a very nice feature that YouTube added recently, and I really think it's perfect for something like office hours. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Andy. Renee will be back next week. He'll also be a special guest on our Sunday show, Twit, This Week in Tech, because we will probably be talking a little bit about Apple. Jason Snell will also be joining us this Sunday. So if you want to hear more of this, there'll be 2 more people involved. We do Mac Break Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. I only mention that, of course, you could download it later, but if you want to watch live, you can do that. We have live audio and video streams. Easiest way to find a stream for you is just to go to our website, twit.tv/live. You'll find everything there. If you're watching live, chat live, irc.twit.tv is the place to go. After the fact, on-demand versions of this show are available at twit.tv/mbw. There's a YouTube channel with all the videos from all the shows. You can also use your favorite podcast client and download it, get it automatically. Leave us a 5-star review if you would. If you like the show, let us know. Share the glory with others as well. A couple of other plugs I'd like to put in. One, we have announced that we're going to be doing an Alaska cruise in 2022. It's more than a year off, but I wanted you to save the date. We'll be going to Alaska Twit Cruise. If you go to cruise.twit.tv, you can see all the information, including the dates. Should be a lot of fun. Lisa and I will be on board, perhaps other hosts as well, depending on how many people sign up. July 16th through 23rd, 2022, if you want to see the glaciers and the salmon and the polar bears. It should be a lot of fun. We're also doing some special events there as well. Again, that is cruise.twit.tv. And, of course, an invitation to everybody to support all of our shows, including this one, by joining Club Twit. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit to find out more. $7 a month gets you 3 very important benefits. Actually, 4. The primary benefit is the knowledge that you're keeping Twit on the air and you're supporting us. But secondarily, you also get ad-free versions of all our show, ad-free and tracker-free, audio and video. You'll get a unique RSS URL just for you. That's your feed. You also can be part of our Discord, which is really a lot of fun. We've been having so much fun on the Discord, and that is a private Discord for members of the club, which is I think part of the reason it's pretty good is because it's just fun people in there, all of whom are serious Twit fans. And there's a Twit Plus feed, and that is stuff that doesn't make it to the podcast's cutting room floor. I'll give you an example of a club event that's coming up this Sunday. Microsoft's got a big gaming event coming up. They're going to be talking a lot about the future for Microsoft gaming, xCloud, Xbox, and so forth. And we are going to live stream that in the Discord. So because it kind of overlaps with the radio show, we're going to do it in the Discord. So we'll have a video channel open there. We'll have the stream. I'll be there. And I hope many of you will be there. And we will make that recording available later on the Club Twit Plus feed. So a few reasons you might want to join, but the most important one is to keep us supported and on the air. So twit.tv/clubtwit. Thanks in advance for your support. Thanks for being here as well, Andy, Alex. Really appreciate it. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
You too.
Sorry?
Oh, so you too, please. Everybody.
All I heard was
have a great time as
2.
well.
I thought,
I'm sorry.
Is that the number of the week? Should I be putting some money on 2? Or I'll go all on red. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Now get back to work, because break time is over. Bye-bye.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you are interested in checking out all things smart home and Internet of Things, then you should check out Smart Tech Today, the podcast I, Micah Sargent, do with my co-host Matthew Casanelli. It's all about the smart home and improving your automations.